bold journalism.
But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
Exposing lawlessness.
Drew Hernandez, who is ideological.
Finding the truth.
And use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
Welcome to TPUSA Live. My name is Drew Hernandez, host of Frontlines. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up on the live stream. Better content than CNN Plus, that's for sure. Here on Frontlines, I'm talking all about how big of a flop CNN's streaming service has been. The company is pulling the plug less than a month after it launched. Plus, I'll get into all the drama surrounding Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. It's psycho. Then we'll send it over to the couch for TPUSA Live. They'll continue the conversation about CNN Plus and liberal media elitism. Then Human Events Daily host Jack Posobiec takes it from there with a look at why Alec Baldwin claims he's been exonerated after a deadly shooting on his own movie set. And then on Breakaway, NFL Hall of Fame linebacker Brian Urlacher goes off on how the league has changed since he retired, plus his take on cancel culture. Then we'll wrap up the live stream with Alex Clark and Poplitics finally settling the hairbrush gate. If you know, you know. And by the way, Frontlines is now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other streaming services. Do not forget to subscribe. Leave a 5-star review right now. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, smash that like button, hit the notification bell, and share this video everywhere. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else, please reshare this transmission now. Alrighty, guys, breaking news, just to bring you guys up to speed. The Florida House has voted to strip Disney World of its self-government, the Daily Wire reports. Florida's Republican-led House voted on Thursday to eliminate a special taxing district that allows Walt Disney Company to govern the land where its theme park is located. The bill passed in a 70-38 vote and is now being sent to Governor Ron DeSantis' office to be signed into law after Florida Senate approved the measure yesterday. And on top of that, the great Sean Foyt has announced another Hold the Line anti-Disney protest, this time at Disney World in Orlando, California, Monday, May 16th at 6 p.m. We will be there on the front lines covering this. Sean has already been DMing me, messaging me, thinking this is going to be the biggest one yet. If you're in Orlando, you're in Florida, and you are sick of what Disney is doing, I want to see you there. I will interview you. It's going to be great. Alrighty, let's get into CNN and the dumpster fire known as CNN Plus. They're not getting canceled by cancel culture. They're canceling themselves because they suck and their ratings are horrible and terrible. The Post-Millennial reports this has been viral breaking news. CNN Plus streaming service terminated after just 21 days, according to sources. This has been confirmed by CNN themselves. CNN Plus, the broadcast network streaming service that has launched just 21 days ago, will be shut down, according to various sources. And CNN themselves has come out and confirmed that this is actually happening. CNN had initially planned to invest around $1 billion in the streaming service over the next 4 years, but was reported by Axios the total was expected to be cut by hundreds of millions. It now appears as though the project will be stopped completely. However, CNN executives had originally expected to bring in around 2 million subscribers in the United States alone in the service's first year, and a total of 15 to 18 million after a period of 4 years. According to sources that spoke with CNBC, fewer than 10,000 people were using CNN Plus on a daily basis 2 weeks after its launch and an extensive ad campaign. According to a report by Axios released on Wednesday, the service suspended all external marketing spending for CNN Plus and has laid off CNN's longtime chief financial officer as it weighs what to do with the subscription streaming service moving forward. Is anybody surprised by this? I mean, I definitely am not, but this is kind of like expected to happen because, you know, CNN is just horrible and they're terrible and they're liars and they're propagandists. Well, CNN went into panic mode and they had to have various meetings with people that are working for CNN Plus. And one of these town hall meetings, there are actually notes and quotes in a recent town hall meeting that was over the downfall of CNN Plus, and the CEO of CNN, Chris Licht, notified staffers of the decision of CNN Plus coming to an end in a meeting on Thursday afternoon. Hundreds of CNN Plus staffers may lose their jobs, Licht said, in an internal memo that all CNN Plus employees will continue to be paid and receive benefits for the next 90 days to explore opportunities at CNN, CNN Digital, and elsewhere in the Warner Bros. Discovery family. Staffers who aren't absorbed elsewhere in the company will receive a minimum of 6 months of severance, he added. Licht also said in a town hall-style meeting with staffers that this was an incredibly successful launch, but simply not compatible with the newly merged company's plans. It's not your fault that you had the rug pulled out from underneath you, he said, as he vowed to minimize the impacts to staff. It's a train wreck, okay? It's like the Titanic is going down. CNN sucks. Everybody knows that they're horrible and they're terrible and they're just a bunch of liars. But I guess CNN Plus, here are some more reports. CNN Plus customers will receive prorated refunds of subscription fees. Hundreds of CNN staffers may lose their jobs, but this is where CNN has come to. I mean, is anybody really surprised by this? Why is this happening? Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe I could take a guess. Maybe because they're liars? Take a look.
We are not fake news. We are real news.
Kavanaugh aided and abetted in the commission of a gang rape.
But it does look like that young man to me is taunting the Native American Vietnam vet, and he's in his face.
When you start whipping people and you want to split hairs between reins and whips.
There is no evidence of any wrongdoing by either Joe or Hunter Biden.
A widely held conspiracy theory that the coronavirus was created in a Chinese laboratory.
This is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It is now a pandemic of choice.
You can stay unvaccinated if you want, but you're not going to be able to travel to see your family.
The biggest terror threat in this country comes from radicals on the far right, primarily white men.
What you are seeing now, these images came and come in stark contrast to what we saw over the course of the daytime hours in Kenosha and into the early evening, which were largely peaceful demonstrations.
If only we had a vaccine against BS.
Yeah, it turns out, CNN, that people aren't willing to pay to be lied to. I don't know, maybe millions of people and woke-tards, these, void of thinking individuals, maybe they'll just watch it for free and they don't mind. They'll just be lied to, on their own accord. But turns out people aren't going to pay for it, CNN. And I don't know, maybe, why is this happening? Because they're liars, they're propagandists, and all they do is tell people how to think. They tell people what to think. They don't even give the news any longer. They don't even give people facts. They don't give people the details. They just give all this propaganda. People are tired of it, CNN. People are tired of hearing Don Lemon and Brian Stelter tell them how stupid they are and what to think and how to think, and not just lay down facts, not just lay down stories. People are sick of it. People are sick of being told that they're stupid. People can think for themselves. And it's very clear right now that CNN is getting canceled by themselves because nobody takes CNN seriously at this point. Nobody thinks Brian Stelter is a legitimate journalist. No one thinks Don Lemon is a legitimate journalist or TV host. These people are propagandists. They are state-backed media, state-approved media, and we all know it by now. It's not real news. Fake news, yes. But it's state-approved news. That's even worse. Why? Because you look at communist totalitarian regimes and you literally have state-run approved media that's in lockstep with the agenda of the government in place. That's what CNN literally does and has been doing for the past few years. And people are waking up to it because they know that they're not news. They are just there to push an agenda, not just the United States in the deep state, but this globalist worldwide agenda. Whatever the narrative is, it gets punched in there, and CNN is in lockstep right there with them. I mean, I don't know. Why is this happening to CNN Plus? Maybe because white people are tired of being told that they're racist every single night, day in, day out by CNN, told that, oh, white supremacy is the greatest threat to any minority in the United States of America. I don't know. Maybe white people are still the majority population in the USA, and when you tell them every single night that they're bad, they're racist, they need to bow down to black and brown people, I don't know. Maybe if you just continue to just degrade people on a nightly basis, they're going to start to get sick of it because it's not true in any way, shape, or form. I don't know. Maybe that's a reason. I would say I'm not even white and I get sick of it. I'm not even white and I can't tolerate that garbage. Sitting there being told that you're a racist when you're obviously not. This is what CNN has become, and people are sick of it and they're tired of it and they don't want to hear it anymore. I don't blame white people. It's ridiculous. Imagine being told you're a racist every single night, just sitting there, oh, there's Don Lemon again telling me why I'm such a racist, white person, when the guy himself is engaged to a white person himself. I don't know if they're married at this point, but people are waking up to this stuff. Oh, there's another black guy on TV telling me that I'm a racist white person. Oh, but isn't he engaged in a relationship to a white guy himself? That doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense, because it's a grift and it's a bunch of lies, but this is where CNN has allowed themselves to get to, because they are now the propagandists. They just push this narrative. They don't even correspond with reality or truth. We all know this by now, but what begins to happen over time is that people begin to see through their crap, see through their garbage, and then the ship begins to sink, because humanity at some point is going to see through the lies and say enough is enough with these people. I want to think for myself, regardless of politics. I don't care if you're on the left or a right-winger. You should have the right to think for yourself, and when you turn on the news, you shouldn't get propaganda. You just get the stories. And I'll say this too, as a journalist, as a legitimate member of the media, I don't care if a journalist has an opinion. I don't care if a news host has an opinion. Just be honest about it. Don't sit there and virtue signal and be like, oh, I am totally unbiased. I don't have any opinions. I'm not on the left. I'm not on the right. But here's my show anyways, and it's clear that I take a side. I mean, at least just come out and be honest about it. People would respect you more. I obviously have more views that lean more to the conservative side. I'm completely open about that. But I'm not going to sit here and virtue signal and be like, oh, I'm just this high and mighty saint of society. I'm the perfect journalist that has no biased opinion. Everyone has a bias. But this is what CNN does. They lie through their teeth, and they literally try to convince you that they have zero political opinions. Oh, we're totally unbiased. You turn on CNN, you're not going to get any leanings from us. At least come out and just be honest about it, because then people begin to realize, hey, you're just lying to me. You're a propagandist. You're just trying to tell me that you're something that you're not. I'll be honest with you. I have my own bias. I have my own leanings, and that bleeds through this show, because truth is what bleeds through this show, and my bias tends to be truth. And people will turn around and say, oh, it's just a right-wing propagandist sitting there talking. No. Just be honest about who you are. That's what people want. Why has independent journalism been on the rise for the past few years? Because people are sick of the corporate media. People are sick of the mainstream media telling them lies, telling them how to think, telling them what to think, because people want to think for themselves. Why do you think independent journalism and media has been skyrocketing for the past few years? I'll tell you why. That is exactly why. Because you have little guys that begin to rise, that just show you the truth, that are honest about who they are. Why are YouTubers blowing up all over YouTube right now that are covering cultural issues, that are covering political issues? Because people just want authenticity. You're not getting that from the MSM. You're not getting that from CNN. You're not getting that from the corporate mainstream media at all. That's what people want. How are we going to get more people to tune in? How are we going to get more people to take us seriously? I don't know. Maybe just be honest with them? Maybe we could give that a try? That's what we aim for. That's what we practice at this show. At least I could speak for myself. I don't know. People are tired of being told that they're racist. People are tired. Americans are tired of hearing how bad America is. People are sick of hearing this garbage night in, night out. I mean, how much does it take, okay, for CNN to realize, like, hey, maybe we're on the wrong side of things here? We're telling Americans how bad they are. We're telling Americans how racist they are. People are going to get sick of that over time. At least I do. I'm not even white. That's just the truth. People are sick of all of this. I mean, being told you're homophobic, transphobic, everything's a phobia. You turn on CNN, it's like, you're homophobic, you're transphobic, everything's a fear, and everything about your life is wrong, and everything about what we say about how you should live is right. That's news? I guess so, according to CNN. But this is why people are tuning out. They're tired. I mean, Jen Psaki is on there with Chris Wallace on freaking CNN Plus talking about how kindergarteners should have secret relationships with their teachers and leave the parents out of it. People are sick of this stuff. They're sick of being lectured. They're sick of being told what to believe. They're sick of seeing their children on the mainstream news being sexualized and groomed, and these massive news corporations in lockstep behind the agenda and pushing it. At some point, something's got to give, and a line has to be drawn in the sand, and these people have to be literally canceled. Oh, Drew, you sound like the left. I do not care at this point, because these people call for anybody and anything to be canceled off of lies. If there's anyone that should be canceled, it's people that support these dangerous ideologies that even target children. That's the truth, and everybody knows it. People are going to sit there and virtue signal like, oh no, we can't just be like the left and call for people to be canceled. I don't care. I will be the one to sit here and trailblaze and say, we should cancel pedophiles, and we should cancel anybody that supports them as well, including these news networks that are anti-American, that hate you and want nothing to do with you, and they don't give you news. They give you propaganda. Screw CNN Plus. They deserve to tank because they are illegitimate and everybody knows it. And CNN, at the end of the day, just simply sucks at this point. Everybody that watches this garbage knows that they're not credible. I mean, it's hilarious when you see Brian Stelter on his show, Reliable Sources, and he's just sitting there, you know, they send Brian Stelter to go. And you guys remember we covered this story a couple weeks ago, when Brian Stelter literally was going on tours around little kids' elementary schools and classes and lecturing your kids about what is real news and what is fake news? Like, does that concern anybody that people like Brian Stelter are going to your schools and having conversations with little kids about what's real and what's not? I don't know, dude. Yeah, real news, right? Real news. That's definitely real news right there. Anyways, enough about CNN. I'm sick of these people. You should not be watching these people anymore. They're not news. They are propagandists. Speaking of totalitarianism and failed regimes, inflation is out of control, and we see that more than ever in the grocery store. If you're looking to save money without sacrificing quality, then you need to check out Good Ranchers. Their prices on 100% American meat have remained affordable, and their quality beats the store every time. Now you can save money, get steakhouse quality, and donate $50 to TPUSA with your purchase by visiting goodranchers.com/TPUSA. Take the guesswork out of the grocery store and make your everyday purchase meaningful. Make your $50 donation today. Go to www.goodranchers.com/TPUSA to get the quality you've been missing for you and your family. The food shortages are coming, so now is the time. All right, America, let's continue. For those of you, I mean, I'd be shocked right now if you don't know who Johnny Depp is, but I know a lot of people out there have no idea who Amber Heard is. She's psycho, literally psycho. I'm going to show you guys why she is. Their relationship is insane. So if you don't know who Johnny Depp is, maybe you've been living under a rock for the past few decades. Superstar actor, Pirates of the Caribbean, list goes on, all these massive movies he's been a part of. Edward Scissorhands, you know, right? But Amber Heard, I think she was in Aquaman. Do I have that right, guys? I think she was, right? She was in Aquaman. She was about to be in Aquaman 2, but she is crazy. She's literally psychotic. Here is a headline article from the Daily Wire, just to bring you guys back up to speed as to why this matters. Amber Heard admits to hitting Johnny Depp in explosive audio shared in court. Here's a little bit of context. Actress Amber Heard admitted to hitting her ex-husband, fellow actor Johnny Depp, and the audio was played in court Wednesday, which was yesterday. Depp is suing Heard for more than $50 million, alleging defamation from his ex, which hurt his Hollywood career. It's kind of like this Me Too thing. She's not accusing rape, but it's like this believe all women thing, right? She has all these accusations. Now there's investigations unfolding, and there's crazy stuff. Heard has countersued, seeking $100 million in damages, accusing the Depp legal team of making false claims about her. Here's some of the audio from the hearing yesterday. Take a look. It's crazy.
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not deck you. I was hitting you. You're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you?
That's the difference between me and you. You're a baby.
Because you started.
You are such a baby. Grow the up,
because you
Johnny.
started physical fights.
I did start a physical fight.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it's like, no, I did not punch you. I hit you. It's like, what? What does that mean? I didn't punch you. I hit you. Oh, that makes total sense. She's definitely not a crazy person, right? Definitely not psychotic in the head. Kind of like goes beyond further than like a crazy ex-girlfriend. Listen, but Johnny Depp is no saint either. Let's be honest. Let's be fair. He's been dealing with drug addiction, opioids, alcoholism for a while now, which is actually a part of what's been happening in the trial, because apparently Johnny Depp wanted to get clean. He wanted to start and clean the slate, wanted to go to his private island, wanted to try and detox. It was like in lockstep with medical professionals, and he was going to go and do it. And his sister was saying, just go to your private island, go detox, take the meds that the doctors give you, because if you have some kind of, really bad trip through your detox, you need to take the medicine to do it. And apparently Amber Heard, because she's crazy, said, you know what? No, I'm going to go with Johnny. I'm going to go with him to his private island, and I'll be there to take care of him. And apparently they're on the private island, and he's going through a horrible detox. His body is freaking out because he's coming off of opioids, and he needed his medicine. And Amber Heard had the medicine to help him so he doesn't possibly die, and she refused to give it to him. This person is crazy. This is all coming out in the trial. It's not a good person, not a safe person. They clearly hate each other, but Amber Heard is psycho. She's literally psycho. Here's some more stuff, okay? This is all coming out in the trial. Definitely some like Me Too weird stuff, believe all women stuff. It has also come out during the trial that in 2015, Amber threw a glass vodka bottle at Johnny Depp, which shattered and sliced off the tip of his finger. And Depp lied to the doctors about what happened because he didn't want Amber to get in trouble. And apparently it was so bad, he saw the bone sticking out of the tip. David Kipper, a personal doctor who took Depp to a nearby hospital, and a chef later found the tip of the finger in the kitchen and brought it to the hospital. I don't know if we have a picture of that. I think there it is. There's Johnny laying in a gurney. This is crazy. Their relationship is insane. Like I said, Johnny's no saint, but Amber Heard is literally psychotic, literally crazy. Here's some more. Depp also claims the argument that led to Amber throwing the bottle started when he asked for a post-nuptial agreement. She lost her mind over this. But in a sworn statement filed in court before the case, Amber said things went down a little differently. She claims Depp was on a 3-day Molly bender, and he assaulted her repeatedly during that time. We will probably never know what actually happened, but it seems like the evidence is definitely in favor of Johnny Depp and not Amber Heard, because she just sounds like a crazy person. Because I'll just tell you right now, when you hear someone on audio coming out and saying, yeah, I didn't punch you, I just hit you, that's not like a sane thinking person. She sounded drunk. She sounded like she's on drugs. Obviously, both of these people are doing drugs and drinking tons of alcohol. And you mix those things together, especially when you're this Hollywood superstar, nobody tells you what you can or cannot do. You're going to run into some major problems, but things get even weirder and kind of gross. Johnny Depp alleges that Amber Heard or her friend, this is all coming out in the trial, defecated on their bed. Heard denied the claim that her or one of her friends defecated in the bed, but rather one of their teacup Yorkies. I'm just going to say, never trust a girl that poops in your bed. I'm just going to be honest with you right now. That's definitely not the one, okay? That's definitely not the one you want to bring home and put a ring on it. That's definitely not the one that you wanted to marry, okay? Because if you got a girl that's just showing up and pooping on your bed, that's probably a bad sign, Johnny. I mean, you probably should have seen this coming, but their relationship is insane. Fingers getting cut off, people pooping inside of their own beds. I mean, this is like the epitome of a Hollywood relationship. It's not sane, mixed with drugs and alcohol, cocaine, Molly, and opioids. And it's just like, wow. But here's the crazy part, right? A lot of these accusations were coming from like the 2016 era. So if you guys remember, if we get in our time machine together right now, right, the advent of Donald Trump, which gave birth to this hardcore Me Too movement, and it was believe all women, and everything a woman says should be believed, and we saw that unfold with the Kavanaugh trial as well, just all these accusations. We shouldn't investigate anything. We should just believe everything a woman has to say if she makes an accusation from a man, and that led to, instead of innocent until proven guilty in these types of situations, it's the other way around. You're guilty until proven innocent. So it's kind of weird how Amber Heard is kind of like coming out, these accusations come out from like that 2016 to like 2019 era, right before the pandemic, where it was the Me Too movement, believe all women. It was like huge. It's still a problem right now. But Johnny Depp has lost movie deals because of this. He's been canceled. A lot of people that are massive, like cult following Johnny Depp fans are seeing that something has been terribly wrong here, done wrong to Johnny, because this has affected his career. It's affected what he's been doing. It's affected what he can or cannot do, all because a woman that is psychotic is coming out with some crazy accusations that she cannot prove. And there's actually proof coming out proving the opposite, that she's the crazy one. But this is where we've been brought to in society, where it's not so much about male or female, because this is the United States of America. There has to be a due process. You can't just make all these accusations and you're guilty until proven innocent. But I mean, here we are, right? That's where these people have brought us. I just find it interesting that when the evidence begins to come out, it begins to reveal who the real crazy person is. Obviously, all this stuff of Johnny's drug abuse is coming out, cocaine lines, all this stuff. Of course. But Amber Heard is no little angel or saint. And I think we all can see that by now, because it's very clear. But here's the point here. Why does this stuff matter? You're like, Drew, I don't even know who Johnny Depp is. Amber Heard? Who the hell is she? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people don't know who she is. But now she's becoming this superstar because that is the grift. You can ride the wave of the Me Too movement. You can grift your way in by accusing a superstar of all kinds of stuff that you cannot prove, and the entire far left and the woke mob rides with it and rides alongside of it and says, yes, believe her. Don't believe Johnny. Believe her alone. You want to know what's crazy about this too? Is a lot of like hardcore Johnny Depp fans, like these Johnny Depp cult followers, are like, how could something be done to Johnny Depp so much? I guarantee you these are the same people that show up to these women marches running around with their pink hats saying, believe all women. I guarantee you a lot of those people are probably the same ones that have created this very situation. Do you see when the woke mob cancel culture becomes a problem because it turns around on you and it begins to bite your own head off? It's like a monster that you create. It's a monster that you erect. It's a monster that you have contributed to becoming a problem, and you think that the monster is fighting for you. But at some point, somewhere along the line, it's going to turn on you and turn around and bite your head off, and the cancel culture woke mob targets you, and you get in their crosshairs. A lot of these people are starting to see this. We're starting to see this unfold in mainstream culture, pop culture in the United States. The same thing happened with Will Smith in the Chris Rock saga. Oh, Chris Rock, Will Smith is getting canceled all of a sudden now, and people have a problem with it. You see this over and over and over and over again. These people, these Hollywood elites that partook in creating this massive monster of cancel culture, now it begins to turn on them when it doesn't fit the narrative or it doesn't fit what they believe. At some point, it's going to come after you. And I'm just going to say this as well, is like, take a look at the culture. You got to look at the temperature in the United States of America. When you take a look at the pop culture, you take a look at what's taking place with our politicians and our mainstream media and our Hollywood and our arts, our fine arts and entertainment. You take a look at education, for God's sake. You look at these indoctrination camps, which used to be universities in the United States of America. You're seeing this common thread across the entire board. It's hatred. People hate each other now. People want each other to fail so bad that they fall off the face of the planet, that they're willing to lie, cheat, and deceive in front of millions of people in order to one-up their own career. You're seeing this across the board. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the Front Lines, and TPUSA Live starts right now.
Thanks a lot, Drew. What's going on, everybody? Once again, welcome to TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. This is what we're covering today on TPUSA Live. First, CNN Plus, sayonara. They're calling it quits after just a month of launching the product. The U.S. Capitol was evacuated because of an unidentified aircraft flying nearby, and more in the daily briefing. Next, an MSNBC contributor says Jesus Christ is a groomer. You heard that right. Stick around for that nonsense. Then we'll show you an all-time President Biden gaffe. And finally, we'll highlight a couple Cal State University professors in another edition of the Professor Watchlist, followed by a list of movies that would make the woke mob lose their minds if they were made today. Our guests and I will show you our picks. And one last thing, let's do this thing. TPUSA Live from HQ starts right now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Look at the squad we got today for TPUSA Live. A couple of TPUSA ambassadors over here, Alison, Furno, and we also got our guy Kangmin Lee.
The man.
Heck yeah. Welcome, guys.
So
good to have you. Great looking cardigan, great looking hair.
I know, it's a vibe today.
And then we got Isabel Brown, TPUSA Contributor. What's going on?
Oh, you know, living the dream this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Can't complain.
Love it. And I'm Jon Root, and this is a lemon. They asked me if I wanted lemon in my water, and they gave me the whole thing, I guess. So shout out to producer Braden back there. We're going to dive right into the daily briefing. So CNN Plus, around for less than a month, and they're done. The best part about this, though, is them announcing I think it was just about 3 weeks since launch. And this is the tweet they put out this morning. If this is not depressing, I don't know what is. CNN Plus, the streaming service that was hyped as one of the most significant developments in the history of CNN, will shut down on April 30th, just 1 month after it launched. Yikes.
Yikes.
That's pretty bad.
And notice they spelled significant wrong. They missed the, they left out the C.
Oh, did they? Let's put that back out there. I want to see.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh, yeah.
Signifiant.
Oh,
they're so flustered because. And who hyped it up? I'm curious. Who was the one who hyped it up? Because no one's watching CNN.
No.
Like, what made them think that launching a streaming service when no one's already watching CNN is gonna do well? It's just
maybe
so
that was the
bizarre.
first thing they weren't lying about. Like, that is the most significant thing they've ever done.
Who's hyping it up? I don't know. The eunuch Brian Stelter, maybe. And that's the only person I can logically think of. But to own yourself that much, that takes a lot of humility. I'll give them that. That's pretty bad. Things that lasted longer than CNN Plus. Probably Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky in the Oval Office, Tom Brady's non-retirement retirement.
That's true.
Sounds about
Bubble
right.
gum you get at the mall for
Bubble
25
gum
cents.
you get at the mall and the little twisty thing. How about the fake horses you paid a penny to ride in the grocery store? That ride as a child
I saw
lasted
someone
longer
also
than
say that.
CNN.
I also say that someone said, I think Jeffrey Tubin lasted longer in the Zoom call than this. And I'm like, no.
Man.
I love people so much.
Well, that's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as what Disney Plus is pushing out there. So parents out there with kids watching, hey, we're better than Disney. That was, but the decision was made by new management after CNN's former parent company, Warner Media, merged with Discovery to form Warner Brothers Discovery. And what their executive said was they're probably going to start housing all the company's brands under one streaming service. So maybe bits and pieces of CNN Plus are going to be under that.
Interesting.
So, but in general, it didn't work. They spent tens of millions of dollars, actually hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure this works. And you got people like Chris Wallace. There's reports saying that he's freaking out.
He should be.
He's losing his mind.
Well, he should be. This is the thing that people forget about a free market capitalist system. If you create a product that people don't enjoy consuming, it's going to fail, which actually is a good thing because it pushes our economy to constantly be innovating new things, to be trying to reach people in a more effective way, in a more well-deserved and well-consumed way. If you're creating a product just to create it, you're going to set yourself up to fail, period, end of story. And I think all the people at the top that were banking on this being their road to success for the rest of their life, they should be freaking out because they didn't create a product that people actually wanted to consume. I say this a lot about creating new social media platforms. You can't just make the same thing that already exists and slap a new name and color on it and expect that everybody's going to love it. You have to create something that has never been done before. The exact same thing can be said for streaming. Just because Netflix hit it out of the park and a handful of others were able to create very successful platforms doesn't mean everyone needs a streaming service. You don't need to do that.
Well, that's why I feel like you got companies like Instagram that did a good job of obviously getting into the video space. Obviously, they killed Vine. That was the best 6 seconds of our lives.
Right.
And that was a lot of
Vine
fun.
walked so TikTok could run, let's be honest.
Twitter still owns Vine.
Interesting.
They do.
Yeah, so I think actually if Elon Musk, he is going to buy out Twitter. And once he does, I really do believe that he should revamp Vine to be a TikTok competitor.
Interesting.
In the same way Reels have been like Instagram's version of it. And Instagram's Reels actually do very well. And I think Vine already has that brand name and nostalgia behind it for millennials. So I think that could also do really well. And that's also an example of like taking what was already good and then revamping it and then being a player in the free market, like you said, in order to buck against the liberal establishment in social media.
And there was news that came out that that $47 billion in funding to buy Twitter, Elon Musk is lined up.
Yeah.
So that could be happening soon.
That's insane. Well, I think a lot of these these woke companies are trying to rebrand because they thought everybody would just go along with it. And now they're crashing and it's like, oh, hold on a second. So especially under names like Warner Brothers and stuff that are kind of those family names. I mean, it really is. They're trying to make it seem just in a different capacity, pushing the same agendas. But I think people are getting way smarter. They're becoming way more aware of all of the garbage that's being put on the news. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to watch this anymore, It's like you said, free markets. I love it because people are starting to just say, yeah, I don't want to listen to all of this garbage and I'm kind of done with it,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we were mentioning yesterday they had less than 150,000 subscribers.
Ooh,
Yikes.
I love it.
Woof. As Kevin McAllister would say. Also, there was news that came out yesterday that the U.S. Capitol was evacuated because there was an unidentified aircraft and seemed to be a potential threat. And then we go to find out it was just an aircraft going over the Washington Nationals ballpark.
It was like a parasailing thing, wasn't it?
It was for a military...
Yeah, here we go. That was the whole thing.
Ceremony or something.
Nats fans, get ready. There's a terrorist. They're going right to the ballpark.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And the world is watching this and laughing at us. They're laughing at us. And, people say don't attribute to malice, which can attribute to like incompetence or stupidity. I just think it's really both, where they're so incompetent, but at the same time, they have to be doing this intentionally. Like, you're the Capitol Police, and when you're in the center of Washington, D.C., in the center of the federal government of the United States, the most powerful government in the whole entire world, you're scared of something like that?
Right.
And you don't even know that's going on? It's the same thing where when we pulled out of Afghanistan, leaving $85 billion of military equipment for the Taliban, for them to just use that for the Taliban to take over Afghanistan just in like 3 days. It's absurd. And you saw a lot of our Marines unfortunately died because of that. But it's so absurd because you look at that, it's like, you can't be this stupid because a 5-year-old could have withdrawn better than you did. In the same way, in this way, it's like, are you serious? Like, really?
Well, this stuff is planned out like way in the off season too. I chatted with a few people that work at the Nationals. Like, this is not something, especially since it's just about a mile away from the Capitol in Washington, D.C. You don't just say, oh, hey, tomorrow we're thinking about just sending in some like parasailers or something like that.
Right.
No, it's like, no, this is planned out. just like they plan out all their giveaway days and everything. So there's proper planning. So they shouldn't be surprised by this whatsoever.
Well, I think you raise an important point, Kangmin. You say you're in the epicenter of political power for the world when you're there in Washington, D.C. I would argue, sadly, and it hurts me to say this, it's not the epicenter of political power for the world anymore. The United States is not the most powerful government in the world in 2022. And that's really hard for us to admit because we want it to be. We love the United States. We love standing for freedom and liberty all around the world and doing what we can to help usher that in all around the world. But I would easily argue that at this moment in time, the governments of Russia and China give us a run for our money.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you then. If people ask you who would be
China,
more powerful.
They surpassed us as the most wealthy country in the world this last year, and they are doing absolutely everything in their power to build up political power abroad through treaties and relationships with other countries and doing what they can to increase their significant influence there, but also at home through significant military training, building up the military, pumping as many resources as possible into improving their national strength. And I really think that is going to pay off for them in the long run, where we don't even see that as a threat today.
Well, they might have more missiles, but we got more pronouns. Like, that's going to mean something, right? And more genders?
Yes. You would think.
My goodness. All right. Want to give you guys a little heads up, too, that we got John Crist. He's going to be coming on the show this next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know I'm going to go check out his comedy tour as well. So if you want to get tickets for that, make sure you head to johncristcomedy.com. You can get that. He's going to be joining us on TPUSA Live April 25th, and then he's going to be at the Opium Theater in Phoenix here on April 24th. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you get your tickets before they sell out. That's johncristcomedy.com. All right, this one here. Our producer sent this when we were figuring out today's show yesterday. This guy, former Bush and Cheney advisor Matthew Dowd, called Jesus Christ a groomer, woke socialist. He said if Jesus Christ was here today, he'd be known as that. It's not just me saying that. Listen to this nonsense.
Did it over the Easter holidays. And the Easter holidays, the entire message of the Gospels of the Easter holidays was love one another. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If Jesus Christ was alive today, he would be called a groomer, he would be called woke, and he would be called a socialist if he was alive today.
First thing I'll say. First thing I will say is Easter's not about you at all. The fact that this guy says the story of Easter is love one another, no, it's about the person that loved you the most, that sent their son to die for you. It's not about you. It's about that sacrifice there, the most selfless act ever done in the history of the entire world. Please go off too, because there's
I
a
need
lot
a minute. Y'all go first, because this is just a lot for me to wrap my head around.
You know, I think at the fundamental level, it drives me crazy that people take God and Jesus and the whole thing of Christianity out of context, but people that don't understand, it's just like a regular relationship. If I just start talking at you, Isabel, and I'm yelling at you, and I'm just like, why don't you do this for me? Why don't you do that? And then I don't get why we're not friends. I don't get why we don't have a good relationship. It's because I haven't tried to get to know you, right? And people do that with God. They're like, well, God, you didn't give me this. You didn't make my life perfect. You allowed this to happen. You don't even open the book. You don't even get to know him. And then you're pissed and you take everything out of context. And that's the thing. If I know the heart of you, I'm going to know what you're going to do. And I don't have to ask. I know your heart, right? It's the same thing with God. If you open the Bible, if you learn the Bible, you're going to know his heart. You're going to know what he's going to do. But people read one verse, they take one thing, and they take it completely out of context. They don't know what they're talking about. So that's what drives me crazy.
Yeah, I think this bozo on MSNBC kind of actually, he actually brings up a really good point in that he shows us that nothing is apolitical and amoral. What I mean by that is that nothing is neutral, because to them, us teaching our children and guiding our children in the ways of the Lord is grooming to them. They see that as grooming because of them, they're so obsessed. A lot of them have sold their souls to the devil, literally and maybe figuratively. And they see Christianity as a threat, and they see it as oppressive. They see it as terrible. And then so right now, we're not seeing a traditional political war in the sense where it's about tax policy, foreign policy, trade policy. We're seeing warring worldviews, warring religions, warring beliefs, warring spirituality, and warring morally ontological views, because to them, they see Christianity as a threat. That's why they call Christians groomers. But we know, like, without the Word of God, like, where do we get our morality from?
Yep.
Where do we get our ethics from?
Right.
And that's what we have to, like, come to grips and grapple with, because without Christianity, this nation will die. The Founding Fathers knew this. People knew this. Regular Americans for the past 200 years, except the past 50 years, knew this, that to have a system of self-governance, you need Christianity, and without Christianity, you cannot govern yourself because your ultimate authority is not God. Your ultimate authority will be the state, it'll be Fauci, it'll be whoever else you make it, but if you don't make God your ultimate authority and you get your morality from him, you're going to see things like, hey, let's not teach children to chemically castrate themselves. They'll see that as grooming.
As evil, yeah.
Yeah,
You know, go ahead.
Because real quick too, I think when we describe groomer too, when you hear someone like Drew Hernandez goes off on this. He's been going off on that for weeks, and you've heard it so much on conservative media. A groomer is a degenerate that builds up trust in order to manipulate and exploit children sexually.
And
That
sever the tie between child and parent.
Exactly, and that's not what
100%.
Jesus stood for, and that's not what the Bible is about.
Right, they're saying the message is love one another, and apparently if you tell children they should experience love, that all of a sudden makes you a sexual groomer. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure to actually love children, you would want to shield them from that as much as humanly possible and protect them from abuse, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid
You're crazy,
or something.
Isabel.
I don't know. The world is crazy, but I find it fascinating that whether or not you practice Christianity yourself, we've come to a point in America in the 2020s where even just the image of God, whether you worship him or not, has been so distorted by modern standards that we can't even recognize what Judeo-Christian values actually are and why they may be good for a free society and a free country moving forward. He talks about, oh, Jesus would be called a socialist and Jesus would be called all these things. And that's true. Like, people by modern standards look at Jesus Christ and they say, reminder, Jesus was a black and brown person and he was a socialist and he hung out with all the prostitutes and he was okay with that. No, he wasn't okay with that. And first of all, his race doesn't matter. You clearly know nothing about the gospel, and his definitely political affiliation didn't matter because this is bigger than politics. But we're trying to take this concept that is so much bigger than humanity and shove it into a humanity-sized box to fit our political agenda. I don't care if you're a leftist. I don't care if you're a conservative or anywhere in between. Jesus Christ is not about politics. And yet, all of a sudden, we've made it about politics to try to fit this war of humanity that we're experiencing here on earth. And I just pray every day that people will have their eyes opened and their hearts opened to actual truth. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing here and what we're doing online with creating content and the conversations that we have every day on podcasts or television or the radio, for me at least, isn't really about getting the next conservative president elected to the United States. It's about telling people the truth every day. And as a Christian, I believe truth is worded in the truth, the way, the life, Jesus Christ. And I just think these conversations have been so distorted in the 2020s that we can't even acknowledge that basic fact anymore. One of the biggest news platforms on earth is calling Jesus Christ a sexual groomer of children.
And when you say the word love, too, like, where does love come from? And who is love? God. And then if you want to understand God, you go to his word. And then if you want to actually understand how the church was not built on socialism, you don't need to go further than Acts 4. When they're building out the church there, it was voluntary to keep the church going and then keep supporting disciples and the congregation. That was not ordered by the leaders of the church at all. Socialism,
or government in and of itself,
Exactly. Like, you don't need to look any further past that to understand socialism is nonsense. And there was and has been a push for, like, Christian socialism.
Yeah.
Too. And that was a huge push, I think, in, like, definitely 70s, 80s.
I would argue
90s,
that's a huge push right now. I mean, many people who consider themselves to be Christians in the United States today are overwhelmingly pro-abortion, they're pro-socialism, they want as much government as possible to protect what they consider to be their worldview. I think that's also dangerous, right? We talk about authoritarianism as a bad thing on the left all the time, but it would also be dangerous, I would argue, from this perspective as well, regardless of what religion you practice. Ultimately, as a Christian, I believe God loves humanity so much. He loves us so much that even though he knows exactly what is good for us and exactly what's going to live a fulfilling life as a human being, what's going to make you feel wholesome and ultimately lead to the kingdom of heaven, he still gives you the option to choose that anyway. He gives you free will. He gives you freedom and jurisdiction over your own life in some regards. And so I think ultimately we should want our government to mirror that as much as possible, to give people the roadmap morally of, hey, here's where we're at right now, but you also still have a choice over your own life, and there's going to be consequences if you have negative actions, but preserving that freedom and liberty is so important and why we are rooted in a Judeo-Christian society.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point earlier talking about people that try to make the truth kind of fit into their own life, right? And I think that's why we're seeing so much of that in the Christianity realm is people go to church and they listen to the part that says, oh, you can do anything. You can, God is for you. He's not against you. And they listen to all of the positive things, but they don't listen to the convicting things, right?
Amen.
It's like they don't put those things in their heart and say, oh, I should actually look at myself. I should actually consider changing. And I think one of the biggest contradictions that I see in the just culture today is, everybody will say, I believe all humans are created equal. Not one person's better than the other, this, that, and the other. And all of these just radical people will bow down to somebody like Fauci and say like, oh, he says that we need to do this. He says we need to get vaccines. And it's like, okay, same thing with religions. All these religions, they're man-made. So to a certain extent, how can you agree with that and say, oh, we're all created equal, but you know better than I do with my medical life, with my personal life, with where I should go, and it's just this idea that if you really believe all humans are created equal, nobody can give me a religion. That's God. God's the only one who has that type of authority that governing authority over my life. And so the fact that these people will scream equality and then they'll, bow down to these people in the government and pretend like there's no difference. It's like, okay, they don't see it across the board.
And then going off of what you said too, final take here before we get into James Corden disrespecting Marines and other servicemen and women, is this idea that where do our rights come from? Like, we know where love comes from, we know where morality comes from, where do your rights come from? The founding fathers, they were not church leaders themselves, but they did understand that there is something bigger than ourselves. So, and if you live in America, that's our foundation. And obviously, I think that's why people are trying to attack it with everything they possibly can, and that's why I feel like Satan's working.
Oh, 100%.
And doing everything he possibly can to dismantle that. All right, James Corden disrespecting a Marine at the Oval Office. Obviously, there's been a huge push with the Biden administration, try to get Jimmy Fallon in there, try to get James Corden. Obviously, there's a reason they brought former President Barack Obama in there, because the poll numbers need to go up because they can't go down pretty much anymore. So. Obviously, he got a late-night TV show there, but he was messing around with an armed Marine who was standing in front of the Oval Office. Check out this video. And then a lot of people have been just like freaking out about this online too. And I feel like you have certain people that are there doing their job, and this is not a comedy sketch at all. There's a time and place for these things.
Wait, really? I mean, we've seen so much comedic content put out by this administration. I could have had me fooled throughout that whole time.
You didn't like the Byron video?
No, with the Jonas Brothers? No, that was the cringiest
so
thing
bad.
I've ever seen in my life. No, I was thinking more about the White House intern sketch, every press briefing ever done by the president himself. I mean, we could go on and on about comedic content. Hot take, I don't think James Corden is that funny. I don't. I never have. Carpool Karaoke was like fine, I guess, but
it was fun, but not because of him.
Yeah, it was fun because of the other
guests.
people.
Yeah.
He's not funny, and I hate that the White House is so focused on bringing in these huge names that they think are going to make this huge cultural splash, and they flop every single time. The Jonas Brothers TikTok was the cringiest thing America has ever seen. Olivia Rodrigo coming to lecture you about COVID. Yeah, because I'm totally going to listen to Olivia Rodrigo about getting vaccinated and wearing my mask. Then they've got that influencer that came in with the long nails doing the White House intern thing, like Jen, girl, Jen. It's so fun to be an intern.
I just can't, where's the information? Like, all of the stuff that I see coming from the White House, they just circle around, and they're just like, well, if you think about it this way, and I'm like, where's the point? When are we going to get to the freaking point? It's like, it's like they circle around until you forget what the question was, and you're like, oh, never mind.
Well, they desperately want President Biden to be culturally relevant, because President
Obama... But they're picking, awful options. I don't think they realize how irrelevant they are making themselves by creating this weird, cringe content.
But you have to have someone like... He's not a fan of President Obama, but he was culturally relevant.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, and I think that's exactly what they're trying to do here. It's like, you can't do this with Uncle Joe. Like, he was a nice little sidekick that was off to the side for 8 years, but now they're trying to insert the same kind of things they did with President Obama. and it's just not going to work because he's just not. I mean, he can't even speak straight. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but he's not going to be culturally relevant. I don't even think these people enjoy President Biden at all like they enjoyed President Obama. Like President Obama was like a just seemed like younger, fit, played sports, all this kind of stuff that like people could kind of rally around, and he could talk well. You know, like he had a lot of those factors that President Biden just doesn't have, and you can't try to use the same formula and just throw it in there and make it work.
Yeah, and I think it's actually really important because people like James Corden and Jimmy Fallon, a lot of these people are kind of making themselves irrelevant now, right? No one really listens to them except maybe like really old millennials and anyone older than that. But the White House is actually very smart in leveraging TikTokers and people like Olivia Rodrigo. I know.
I agree with that.
I look at that and it's like cringe, but there's a lot of high school and middle schoolers who love them. They like absolutely love them. Like people like Ellie Zeiler, like Charlie D'Amelio and Addis Ray, and all these TikTokers who, for most conservatives, don't know who they are because they're not on TikTok. But the thing is, most of our younger generation, most of Gen Z and the young parts of Gen Z are on this app, and they love these people. And then so the White House knows this, and so they don't care about people like us. They don't really care about people who are older because it's hard to teach a dog new tricks. But they're going after our children because they're impressionable. This is why they're so mad the libs of TikTok is exposing a lot of what teachers are doing, because they're trying to do these things in secret, covertly, and target the younger generation, teenagers, children, even toddlers, because that's how they know they can achieve and succeed in the revolution of their woke pronoun dystopia.
I actually totally agree. I think it's smart of them to go after TikTokers. That being said, I think the Trump administration was actually who was doing a fantastic job working with influencers, and they're trying to replicate what was started under the previous administration. Now, for example, towards the end of the Trump administration, they held a social media summit for huge creators at the White House where dozens and dozens of people were invited. The entire White House was decorated in memes that the White House digital office themselves had made. It was a whole thing.
Benny
and nobody
Johnson
in
must have
mainstream
lost his
media
mind.
wanted to cover that because it was like, oh, well, you don't care about cable television and radio and the important things of how we've gotten information out in the past. No, they were very smart in knowing the best way to disseminate information is through creators and independent streams of information these days. So I think the White House is smart to do that. That being said, if they were actually smart, they would try to create less cringy content that actually would work and not be so off-putting to this administration.
Well, nothing's as cringy as President Biden talking. Like, we're going to show you an all-time gaffe right after this 30-second break from Patriot Mobile. Don't go anywhere.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now, more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies who fight for our rights and our beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to our causes, and with your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got Isabel Brown. I'm Jon Root, Alison Furno, Kangmin Lee.
Yes, sir.
President Biden back at it again. Byron. Man, this is so cringe. I feel like we have something every single day from this guy. And when he was asked about Title 42, obviously there's so much going on at the border. The borders are, VP Harris is not going. There's record numbers crossing into the states. They're not getting tested for COVID or anything like that. And they want to know, is it going to get rescinded? That's all the question they're asking. And President Biden's response had absolutely nothing to do with Title 42. He seems a little confused. Check it out.
President, on Title 42, sir, are you considering delaying lifting Title 42?
No, what I'm considering is continuing to hear from well, first of all, there's going to be an appeal by the Justice Department because as a matter of principle, we want to be able to be in a position where if in fact it is strongly concluded by the scientists that we need Title 42, that we be able to do that. But there has been no decision on extending Title 42.
Kangmin, he has no idea what's going on.
He has no idea what's going on. He actually reminds me of my grandfather.
Oh no.
And this is kind of why we're like, I like struggle with like, oh man, this guy's an evil guy. He's been in government for over 50 years. But at the same time, he's just such an old guy who literally doesn't even know where he's at. Like my grandfather acts like that. He's like, huh? He's like clueless. And it's like, I don't know. What do we do? Because literally World War III is breaking out. Inflation's through the roof. Our economy is going to crumble. Food shortages we haven't even seen the worst of food shortages. It's going to get so bad in the next 2 years. And this guy's just like, 42? You mean mask mandates? It's like, everyone's watching this. And that's why even normal Americans are seeing this and they're saying, okay, we need Trump back in the White House, or we need someone to replace this guy. Because he is not there. He is just not there. And I feel bad because clearly he's not the one leading the free world. He's not the one in charge. Then who's the one in charge? I don't think Kamala is either because she doesn't know what she's doing.
And she's
who's
never
in
around.
charge?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think we could play that game all day long. I, too, feel really bad. I actually have started to have a lot of sympathy for this situation. It used to be really funny. Like, I always feel like I'm watching that episode of Parks and Rec where Ben Wyatt goes and works for the congressman in D.C., and the congressman's like a robot, and every single one of his sentences makes absolutely no sense, but he uses really big vocabulary, and it sounds political, and they're all like, I'm sorry, is this guy for real? Like, is he a robot? I'm so confused. That's what I felt like for the first year of this presidency. And now that we're a little ways into year 2, I look at this happen every single time. The man tries to talk to somebody in the crowd about Afghanistan, and the Easter Bunny swoops in and steals him away. His wife says at the Easter egg roll, oh, they don't want you to read the children's book. Just sit down, just sit down. And he literally says, they don't want me to read a children's book. I'll just sit down on the stage.
Did you hear her say like wave, wave, wave?
Yeah, wave, wave. And he's like looking around all confused. He's waving. Every single one of these press briefings, he has to have note cards because he doesn't remember who he's supposed to call on, what people's names are. Like very simple thing, not presidential level things, very simple things. And on Candace's show this week with Daily Wire, we were talking about this, and she said, honestly, she's come to the point that she thinks this is elder abuse. And I totally agree with her. Like at some point, this isn't a funny, haha, look how stupid our president moment is. It's like, this is a senile old man with dementia who needs to be in a facility that like he needs help and medication and a doctor more than anything else. And his wife is just like, haha, wave, honey. The Easter Bunny will come get you. It's not funny. Like, it's really sad. Human beings deserve more than that, but they just think it's some like joke. Like, we'll just make you look like an idiot in front of the entire world.
I honestly think, and seeing this just at the grassroots level, working for different campaigns, that this administration was betting on the ignorant voter, and they got a lot of votes based on people who were just like, oh, well, you know, I like President Biden, and you know, he did good with Obama, and you know, there's all of this stuff that they kind of just made it. It's more of a marketing and branding thing. They branded him as somebody who you can trust and as your grandfather and whatever. And even to this point, some of the far left people that are still praising him, it's because they're not paying attention to what's actually going on, but because they feel better about President Biden than they did about President Trump. You know, I truly believe this last election, so many people didn't vote for Trump just because they didn't like how they felt about him, you know? And so now we're still in that phase. We have so many people that are really ignorant voters. They go off of a tweet, they go off of a meme, they go off of something they see, and they're like, oh, well, I can't vote for that guy because he's not for this, or you know what I mean? And it's just a feeling. And so they're still, even as stupid as this whole thing looks, they're still appealing to a lot of people who don't know what's going on. And that's the crazy part. And I think that's something that conservatives really need to work on, is how do we get people involved that, I mean, a huge part of America just doesn't know what's going on. And they, you know, they're those people that say, well, I just don't do politics. You know, like I'm just not one of those people. And it's like, well, you should, because, you know, it's kind of important.
I think that's actually resolving itself, the I don't do politics thing. Everything is political.
Right.
In the 2020s. Literally everything. What music you listen to, what TV shows you watch, what movie you go see at the movie theater, what food you eat, what car you drive. Like, literally everything has become political. And I think people are becoming aware of that, to the point that there's not really an option to not do politics anymore. And they're having to get involved in some way, shape, or form. Now, whether they make the right choices associated with that, I don't know. But Kangmin, you raised a really great point. I think really even like leftist people, like people who aren't even moderate liberals, but hardcore leftists are like, hey, I didn't vote for this. Can I fix that? Can I get a refund on that situation at midterms or in 2024? And I think that's actually going to swing so far in the other direction that we aren't even prepared for what that looks like in 2024.
What do you think the White House response is going to be, Kangmin? Because there's times we've known that he has not answered questions after speeches, and he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. He gets angry at reporters, and he's making the nation look bad. He's constantly making his administration look bad. He's making us look weak. What do you think they're going to do after another gaffe like this?
Oh, I think they already tried to clean it up. They had some tweets or public announcements saying no, that he didn't actually mean that he was talking about something else. They just really try to cover it up in the
Actually,
same way.
he did say that. I want to clarify that in comments at the conclusion of my remarks this morning. I was referring to the CDC's mask mandate, and there is no Department of Justice action on Title 42. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. And that's the thing. They did that with when he called for regime change with Putin. He's like, we got to get this guy out of power. It's like, bro, what are you doing? And it's so insane. And they always have to clean up after him. Yeah. He says all these things. He doesn't even know what he's talking about, and they always have to clean up after him. That's just kind of what it's been for the past year and a half under his presidency. I can't imagine it'll get any better in the next 2.5 years.
I don't think it'll last another 2.5 years. That's my hot take.
Clinton's what?
No, I think I have a very specific thought process of what's going to happen. Sorry to break it to you, Kamala Harris will be our first female president. That sucks. I hate to say that.
Are you a biologist?
Actually, I am, believe it or not. I am a biologist, a biomedical scientist. No,
Checks
but
out.
Here is what is going to happen. One of two things. Either A, he's going to have to resign because of his health, because this is deteriorating faster than anything I've ever seen before, faster than CNN Plus saying they're no longer going to keep streaming on CNN Plus, apparently. So he's going to have to resign because of his health, or we will get to a point where Congress can't help but do anything else other than invoke the 25th Amendment, because this man is completely senile. He doesn't even know what state he's in. Eventually, you're going to have to say, okay, buddy, we can't trust you with the nuclear codes. Sorry, thanks for your time. Enjoy retirement in Delaware. They won't let that happen, so he'll resign in advance of that happening because you don't want to go out in disgrace of having to have the 25th Amendment invoked upon you. If that's the case, Kamala Harris becomes our president. Awful. But we all know she's the least electable human being on earth. She has no support in California, where she's from. So they'll never run her in 2024. I am putting $100 on this right now, and they're already laying the groundwork for it. The 2024 nominee for the left side of the aisle is going to be Michelle Obama.
I would agree with Michelle Obama.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
They are posturing the Obamas so significantly right now. She has accomplished really nothing other than increase childhood obesity through school lunch programs and pose for a weird painting that's hanging in the Smithsonian. And yet she's the most popular first lady that's ever existed in the United States. Obama can't run again, obviously. I think they will run her to be the first elected female president, banking on his support and his popularity, and that is what they're investing all of their time into right now. He is narrating that new National Park show on Netflix, which actually was low-key pretty good. It was hard to get past Obama narrating all of it, but I dealt with it. They're bringing him back to the White House.
National Park.
They're shoving Joe Biden in the corner and being like, oh, here, take pictures with President Barack Obama. So fun. Meanwhile, Biden's just walking around in the background all confused.
I felt so bad.
I felt horrible.
Because you see Biden, he was trying to tap Barack Obama. He's like, hey, buddy. And Barack was just like this.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So I don't know if it'll last another 2.5 years. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you on Michelle Obama. I mean, especially, too, she's quarter of a century younger, too. You got to remember, if President Biden decided to run again, too, he'd be in his mid-80s.
Yeah, that would not.
He already announced that he's running again.
Well, he told Barack Obama, I kind of want to run again. Whether that's an announcement, I don't know. Yeah.
He told him, and he didn't remember. But we want you to remember this. TPUSA's fearless leader, Charlie Kirk, is going to be on Trinity Broadcast Network show Praise Tonight. You can watch the episode at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, that is 5 p.m. Pacific, only on the world's largest Christian TV network, TBN. This conversation between Charlie and host Tom Newman will focus on gender and identity. You definitely don't want to miss it. Once again, that's tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on TBN. It's Thursday, so we're going to get into the Professor Watchlist. We got Isabel Brown, Kangmin Lee, Alison Furno on Jon Root. This first one, you're going to like this one, Isabel. Ooh, boy. These are a couple Cal State University professors. This one's out of Cal State University, Long Beach. Dr. Malana Karenga is the chair of Africana Studies at California State University, Long Beach. Dr. Karenga was a prominent black nationalist during the 60s and 70s, during the time in which he founded the holiday Kwanzaa. And then, so the thing about Dr. Karenga, he's convicted for torture of 2 women he falsely suspected of poisoning him.
Wait, excuse me?
It's a lot to
Yes.
unpack here.
Yes, and so he also wrote in his book when he's talking about Western faith, he said holidays like Christianity with Christmas, Easter, other Jewish holidays, he said those holidays deny and diminish human worth, capacity, potential, and achievement.
Okay, so back up. He got arrested for what now?
He tortured 2 women.
He tortured. Are we using like a legal definition of torture here?
Tortured and also kidnapped these women. What happened was these women, who were one of his several followers, said that they were putting poison crystals in his food and water. What he did was he stripped them naked, bound them, and ordered them to confess. He tortured both of them over the next 2 days, beating each with an electrical cord, and then branded them with a soldering iron. Excuse me.
Yeah, happy Kwanzaa. Jeez.
How is he teaching anybody anything?
But you got to remember that Christian holidays and Jewish holidays, those diminish worth, not torturing women.
I just don't really have much to say about this, amazingly. This is education, I guess, apparently.
So who
now.
hired him? Like, you're looking at the resume, you're looking at, I see you didn't pass your background check, and it's okay. It's totally, like, how does that even happen?
Was he ever punished for it? Did he ever?
I have no idea.
So the court later sentenced him to 1 to 10 years for those 2 counts of felonious assault and 1 count for false imprisonment. However, he was granted parole in 1975 thanks to a letter writing campaign by his followers.
I hate California.
So that's what they end up doing too, is they can justify that stuff, Alison, and say like, well, that did look bad, but there was parole and he did get out, and then he created Kwanzaa, and it's someone that had some ties to the Black Panther Party, but we're not really going to tell you the true history of Kwanzaa or the Black Panther Party or any of these places. It's going to be like, no, look at this diversity, inclusion, and equity, and all this stuff. Like, yep, Dr. Crazy is on campus, and we're proud of it. That's what they think.
I mean, you can really tell somebody's, their character by how they treat somebody when it's a bad situation, right? Anybody can act good when good things are happening. But when something bad happens, how do you respond? That can really be the testament of your religion or your, the way that you practice whatever you practice. So if his response to thinking somebody poisoned him was to torture them, I don't think that's a religion that I would want to follow. I mean, how do you create better people by, repaying evil with evil?
Yeah.
And by, what I mean? It doesn't make sense. So if you look at the fruits of somebody's religion, I mean, so many religions are rooted in hatred and anger and people suffering. And then we have so many following it for what? I mean, that doesn't even make sense. But I think that, people relate to that hatred, just like, Christians respond well in love and they respond in doing things for each other. I mean, hatred responds well to hatred. So when you see this kind of stuff and that, he's being hired at this university, they respond well to that type of, it's something that's comfortable for them. And that's a really scary thing for any university. But unfortunately, that's kind of what we're seeing.
And this is not where it ends, people. We got another Cal State University professor, this one from Cal State University, Los Angeles. Cal State University, Los Angeles, you got to remember, they are the first place to have African-American only dorms.
Ah, lovely.
So that's laying the groundwork for this one here, people. So when the Young Americans Foundation Club advertised that Ben Shapiro was going to be on campus, this professor decided that he's going to speak out against the event organizers and all the conservative students on campus and called them white supremacists. And then he stated in an article, said, FYI, tough guy provocateurs, we have an open mat on campus in the gym in the USU building at 1 p.m. Friday and noon on Saturday. If you want to show us your white supremacy, heads up though, I lift, bro.
Oh.
So they're openly calling for violence.
That guy lifts for sure. Thanks, Dr.
That
Robert
guy
Weedy.
lifts, bro.
Wouldn't scare me.
Terrifying.
Looks like I could just sit on him and he'd die. It looks weak. And this is coming from someone who's not super macho. Here's the reality. They protect their own, right? So even they think that the ends justify the means, even if the means are evil. So they are okay with beating up people, with literally killing people. We saw this in 2020 with the BLM riots. They're okay with burning down businesses, buildings, hurting people, as long as they get what they want. And so I saw this video that Andy No shared yesterday, which was horrific. But there's a ton of black teens, I think, in Boston who ganged up on this one girl because she was wearing braids. And they said, that's cultural appropriation, how dare you? And they beat the living crap out of her. I'm like, what? And of course the media doesn't cover it. Or they say, no, it's okay, because riots are the language of the unheard. And they say they've been suffering for too long. It's like, no, you can't. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Yep.
You can't beat up people for past oppressions. You can't kill people because your ancestors were slaves. That doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. You can't do that. But unfortunately, that's what they do. So even this professor is like, hey, come to the mat, we'll beat you up. And it's so frustrating to me because they throw all these terms out there calling Ben Shapiro white supremacist. He's a Jew. White supremacists don't like Jewish people. They don't. It's like, it's the same way they call, they say, only white people can be racist, but Candace Owens is racist. Or I'm so tired of it. Like, I don't know what else to do except to just like, I don't know. Like,
maybe we can start by sawing off California from the map and pushing it into the ocean.
Once again, once again, I know Jack Posobiec, when he was on the show a couple weeks ago, he asked me what I thought since I was from California. I said, let me get my family out first.
John, I've given you plenty of time. The ultimatum starts now.
Okay. It's not that easy. If we want, okay, maybe we'll start like a give, send, go, and then I can get my family out of there, and then we can be like, yes, we are financially stable. Get out here, leave California. Go off into the sea. Go. Just white fang that entire sea.
Go.
Just go. Just go.
I love it. Let's do it.
But another part of this too is we actually have people like this that have a job on campus, supposed to be teaching students and leading the next generation to be equipped in the workforce, in society, in culture, and they're actually calling for violence, and they still have a job. You have people that actually call for violence against the creator of Libs of TikTok online, and then Twitter's going to look at that and say, no, we just reviewed it, and that just doesn't go against our rules. But you have people like Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk that are off. Because like, no, because they're violent and they're hateful. But you have people like this that are legitimately calling for the end of, like the first professor, the end of Christian holidays, the end of Christians in general. And then you have this one that says, come here, students who I'm supposed to be teaching or supposed to be a leader for on campus, I'm going to beat you up and I'm really going to show you.
Yeah, it's because they're rooted in moral relativism. At the end of the day, it circles back, not to sound like Jen Psaki, to what we were talking about earlier, where if you don't have objective truth and you don't have objective morality, your society is set up to fail. It just is. I mean, you cannot survive because ultimately tribes will fight against tribes, and the level of division in our society that's just going to increase our concept of tribalism is only going to grow. And that's what we're seeing right now. It's what we've seen throughout the past 5 to 10 years especially, and I don't have a lot of hope for what that looks like if we can't at least all get to the point where we agree we need moral relativism and objective truth, or we need an end to moral relativism and objective truth, because otherwise I don't know how we come together and find an identity as one country again.
Yeah, I mean, when the truth is subjective, like you're saying, you can't really have anything. But I think something that both sides have kind of lacked doing, I've noticed this on my radio show, it's hard to get liberals to come and talk to me because they automatically think that we're just going to fight, you know? And it's people, if you stop having conversations, you can't, break those things down and say like, well, why does this make sense? Why does it not make sense? And I think that's a big reason that Christianity is constantly being attacked, because it's the strongest religion of the entire world, and it builds the most fundamental foundation that you can live on. Same thing with the family, same thing, all of the belief systems and structures that come from Christianity and from the Bible. So that's why it's being attacked, because if people stand together, all of these, terrible systems can't take over. But the more you break people down, the easier it is to take over a society. So.
And just look at the way that conservatives go about conversations too. You look at someone like Steven Crowder, Charlie Kirk, all of you guys, the way you have conversations with people, it's like, let's actually talk. I know there's been plenty of people I've not been able to get on Breakaway that have been flooding my DMs or giving me calls or we're texting back and forth, and I'm like, let's talk about the Colin Kaepernick situation. I'm happy to. And I don't hate you for being on the other side of the argument here. Maybe we could bridge a little gap and find a way forward if we actually chatted.
Right.
Let's put the cameras on. This is not gotcha moments. Let's just present and state our opinions and definitely just get down to the truth. But they won't have those conversations. When it's like, change my mind about this, Steven Crowder's just inviting you to talk.
Right.
Charlie Kirk's inviting you to talk. A lot of us get back to people in our DMs too. It's like, appreciate you reaching out. I don't hate you. There's people that, I know I had a few people yesterday that actually threats, which is like crazy to have that stuff happen more with us. They just hate us so much. They're saying we want like death to these people and their family. I had people say yesterday, I hope that your family gets raped and murdered just because I had a take on Colin Kaepernick. These are the people that are supposed to be the tolerant left. But we are not the party of violence or hate. We actually want to have discussions and get down to the truth, but these people hate the truth and they don't want to have these conversations at all. And that tells you everything you need to know about these people. But let's go to our buddy Sebastian Gorka for Freedom Square, and we'll be back for one last thing.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got Isabel Brown. I'm Jon Root, Kangmin Lee, Alison Furno. We got time for one last thing, and something I've wanted to talk about for a while is movies that could never be made today.
Oh.
That movies, if they got made today, all of them. Oh man, there's so many movies, and I have a specific list myself.
All right.
But I think we're going to cross over, make this a little bit of a hybrid. We have shows
Okay.
as well. We know that cancel culture is hit shows like The Office.
Yeah.
You talk about one of the most cringe shows of all time.
Love it.
The best one.
It's so good. So Michael Scott, Steve Carell is fantastic, but one episode that got removed and cancel culture hit it was Diversity Day.
My favorite episode.
It's the best episode.
Well, and I think the humor had to stop. They had to stop the humor so that you could make it a serious issue, right? Because if people are making fun of it, it's like, it's not a big deal. That you can actually, and that's when your best friends, that's how you make fun of them, because it's something you don't control, it doesn't matter. And for them to take that away and say, oh, well, no, this is a serious issue, you don't talk about this, now it's like awkward. Now you can't make those jokes, and it's terrible. It's because it's hilarious.
And that's why I love just the back and forth. It's a satirical show. Michael Scott makes white people look silly, and I'm dying. As one of the whitest people on the planet, I'm looking at him like, that is really funny. Yeah. And you have Stanley just like, dude, I stutter. Yeah. This kind of stuff, it just goes to show just a real workplace where sometimes people will say things where it's like, they're not promoting this there's some sort of superiority of the white boss over the black colleague or something like that, or employee. It's like, no, these are funny, stupid things that we can look back on, and that's what we need to do in society, is just make fun of ourselves. And I know people like Steve Carell, he doesn't line up with conservatism at all, but sometimes you have comedians that are able to bridge the gap in such a way with these shows and movies. I'm like, this is hilarious. We need more of that. But there's so many microaggressions now. Yeah. Is there, what's one movie you can think of that's just that could never get made?
Well, a lot. Like every movie ever made. I mean, look, Disney, now that they're admitting they want 50% of their characters to be LGBTQ plus 2IA, whatever is in the acronym now, they're actually removing movies off of Disney Plus, or they're putting sensitive content warnings on children's movies that have been made forever ago. I know they did this with Pocahontas. They did it with Peter Pan, I'm
Peter
pretty
Pan's
sure.
one of those.
I don't even remember why they did it with Peter Pan.
So Peter Pan, what they ended up doing was they said that Captain Hook and Tinkerbell were potentially problematic.
Why?
And they're talking about how they have like the Indian village, and then so they dress.
That I can
up.
understand a little bit more as problematic, more than Tinkerbell, but okay.
But I think that's when there's just so many, like, once again, these just like little like microaggressions too that people like take and they're gonna run with. It's like even Peter Pan's flight at Disneyland, they're trying to maybe scrap that entire thing. So they're gonna they're trying to erase history. Too. It's like there's aspects of that where it's like, all right, well, was that actually like really making fun of a certain people group? Or is that just kind of like you have just kids on a deserted island in a fairy tale movie, and like, but they're focusing on Tinkerbell and Captain Hook.
Well, that I don't think ever was intended to make fun of people. I think a lot of great movies and shows are intended to make fun of people, and that's not a bad thing. Like,
Right.
We've come to this time in American society where we don't want anybody to be made fun of at all, ever, all the time. Like, bullying
Except
has
white
to be
people.
dead, making fun of people has to be dead, good comedy
fun of
has
me.
to be dead. The best shows and movies ever make fun of people. That's what comedy is. It's making light of what is actually rooted in reality. That's what makes things funny. Right off the bat, I think of Friends. Every joke ever written in that show would not be allowed to be made today. Trying to paint Chandler as, is he gay? Is he not gay? All of it. It's so funny. Making fun of Monica for being fat when she was in high school, that was hilarious, but now you could never do that.
Fat
ever.
shaming.
Yeah, that's fat shaming.
And then Chandler's dad ends up being
yes,
trans.
I forgot about that too. That's hilarious.
And the funny part about that is they have also Ross's ex-wife
Is lesbian.
is
yeah.
lesbian, and then has a lesbian wedding, and then Phoebe goes to that wedding and says, "Now I've seen it all." Like, if that was in a show today, people would riot in the streets. They'd freak out. But Kangmin, what's a show or movie you can think of?
Not to say this just because I'm Asian, but Mulan. Because one of my favorite Disney songs of all time is I'll Make a Man Out of You. And it's all about being a man. So being as swift as a coursing river, as swift as a great typhoon, strength of a raging fire. So it's like being a strong man.
Mysterious as the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of the woke will look at that and say, oh my gosh, toxic masculinity. I don't say that to exaggerate. Like, they literally think being a strong man is a toxic trait.
Which is stupid because that entire movie is about how women can be strong too.
Yeah.
But they probably
But maybe
would
Mulan
say
was
that.
a man.
No, but I think they also hate it because it is a very overtly feminist movie, which I don't have a problem with particularly. I'm not a feminist, but I enjoyed the movie. It was a good movie. But at the end, you can see also that she wants to settle down and have a family with Shang, and then they hate that, right? Because they're like, she doesn't need a man. They hate family. So.
Mulan's a good choice. I love that movie.
Alison, what do you got?
The Office is the only one. That's it. Like, that's what's most important to me. And I was so mad that they removed Diversity Day. But I was thinking about, with all you guys talking about this, when you're a kid, it's like you're taught these things like, don't touch the stove because it's hot, right? It's something really just like, don't do that. And if you can get a kid to be sensitive at such a young age to things like that, oh, don't talk about race. We don't talk about that, right? And if it's something that's never addressed, now you have a high school kid who's ready to fight for something like that because it's just like a trigger. You know what I mean? So I see what they're doing with these Disney movies and removing all of this stuff, and kids are growing up seeing, hey, they removed these movies, what's going on? And and so it's interesting that they're starting at such a young age of trying to sensitize them to things that really don't matter. And it's stuff that you can't control. That's what's so crazy about it. That's why we can make fun of it, because you don't control it. That's why it's hilarious. You make fun of people for something they can't control. But on the opposite end, I was just at a comedy show a couple weeks ago, and this lady for 10 minutes talked about porn and how she thought that they should stop making a big deal about human trafficking because she wants to keep watching porn. And I was like, is nobody going to stand up and say something right now? So they didn't joke about anything, and they joked about human trafficking for 5 minutes. She's going on and on about how we need to stop doing. And I'm just like, how is this allowed? How is it allowed to make fun of kids being abused, but we can't make fun of skin color, of this, of that, of something that doesn't have any merit, right? So it's crazy how these super woke people are transitioning over to things that are actually terrible to joke about because they have nothing else for comedy.
Yeah, that's true.
Couple movies that I do want to touch on. Number one, this movie, if it got made today, like, I don't think we'd have a United States of America.
Oh boy, that's a big statement.
The Ringer. The Ringer and Tropic Thunder. We'll start with The Ringer.
Oh, I love Tropic Thunder.
The Ringer. So this is literally Johnny Knoxville in the middle of that movie cover. He pretends to be a special needs athlete so he can make money to pay off debts. And he changes his name to, do you know what he changed his name to?
I didn't never see this movie, no.
I haven't either.
Jeffy Dahmer.
Oh, no.
And he pretends to be retarded the whole time. Like this entire movie, and his name, Jeffy Dahmer, for people that don't know, the biggest serial killer in the history of the United States, maybe even the world. And it's this whole thing where he's just making and embodying a special needs athlete at these Special Olympics where he ends up competing, and they would just freak out. The other one too, real quick, is we got Tropic Thunder. And that's the final thing we'll say as we wrap up the show here. Blackface, Simple Jack, craziness. It's been a crazy show. It's been a good time, but we got Human Events Daily coming up next. See you tomorrow.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. Today's April 21st, 2022, Anno Domini. Today's top headlines. First, the Colorado governor, Jared Polis, offers Disney asylum as he urges Disney to leave Florida. Next, Saudi prince says he will not release more oil into the U.S. market amid declining U.S.-Saudi relations because of Biden's bumbling. Third, Johnny Depp testifying in the defamation trial against ex-wife Amber Heard, and what does this have to do with the Washington Post? And then finally, Alec Baldwin claiming he's been exonerated over this new report in Helena Hutchins' death. But has he really? All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily. Well, Governor Jared Polis of Colorado has responded now to Ron DeSantis over this whole flap with Disney. So what's he getting into, right? So he tweets it out, Jared Polis. Florida's authoritarian socialist attacks on the private sector are driving businesses away. In Colorado, we don't meddle in the affairs of companies like Disney or Twitter. Hey, Disney, we're ready for Mountain Disneyland. And Twitter, we're ready for Twitter HQ2, whoever your owners are. So there's a lot to go through here, a lot to break down. Number one, we don't meddle in the affairs of the private sector. Are you kidding me? Show me any business anywhere in the United States at any level that doesn't have to go through government regulations, government red tape, government restrictions, taxes, the whole 9 yards. Taxes, tax credits, compliance, non-compliance. It's a joke. So it's obviously a joke that companies don't have any, well, meddle in with this. That's a socialist thing to do, meddle with our companies. Yeah, cut me a break, dude. Every single company in the entire country that's ever existed, going back to like the 1700s, had to deal with some form of government, quote unquote, meddling. And this idea of a laissez-faire, government that has nothing to do, it doesn't exist. It literally doesn't exist. It only exists on paper. It's never been a thing in the real world, period. So I know that, marijuana is legal over there in Colorado now. So I don't know if Jared Polis maybe was dipping his beak a little bit in when he wrote this tweet, but that's kind of what it feels like, because what he's saying literally makes no sense. That being said, authoritarian socialism, really, authoritarian socialism, because, that's actually the opposite of socialism, because what's Governor DeSantis doing? Yes, he's using the power of government. Yes, he's using this as a lever of power. But what's he actually doing in the effective cause, right? The effective cause of what he's doing is to take away a special governance status from Disney that was granted to him by the state of Florida to begin with 55 years ago. So this law that DeSantis essentially is repealing was put in place as a special status for Disney to give them self-governance over the area that later became Walt Disney World, right? They have that as a special status granted to them by the government. This whole thing started with government. It has nothing to do with, authoritarian socialism attacks, not even. All he's saying is, guess what? We're going to actually treat Disney the same way we treat every single other company in the state of Florida. And why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Because Disney is acting like they're their own government. Well, let me tell you something. To the people at Disney, and I said it yesterday, you are not a sovereign government. You do not have sovereignty. State of Florida has sovereignty. The United States of America has sovereignty. Corporate power is not sovereign. And it's finally time that conservatives like Governor DeSantis stand up and use those sovereign rights that are granted to them by the people of Florida, empowered by the Constitution of the state of Florida, the same way that all 50 states have their state constitutions empowering them, right? Empowered through our system of federalism and the constitutional republic in which we reside. That's our system. Go read through any of the constitutions, right? The states or the federal government. You will not see anything in there that says Disney World gets sovereignty. Doesn't work that way. Literally doesn't work that way. So you're kind of wrong. Maybe you need to go listen to Freedom Papers with Morgan Zegers a little bit to understand how our government actually works or is supposed to work. Because when a government gives you a special handout, and by the way, he mentions Twitter again, Section 230, again, that's immunity that's granted by the government, immunity from several sets of laws. That's also a special status that's been granted by government. If we're taking away something that government gave you and treating you the same way that we would treat any other company, that's not socialism. That's actually the opposite of that. But I'll do you one further. I have no problem with conservatives using the power of government to bring these woke and out-of-control corporations to power, to heal. It's time. They've gotten too powerful. They're switching around too much weight. They're shifting around too much weight. They're trying to act like they have sovereignty. No one elected them. It's time to start bringing them down to size.
And I would make it very clear, we were not going to, in fact, sell more weapons to them. We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are. There's very little social redeeming value in the present government in Saudi Arabia.
Well, the Wall Street Journal is out with an incredible piece. How the U.S.-Saudi relations reached the breaking point. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman essentially threw Jake Sullivan, Biden's national security advisor, out of a meeting at a seaside palace that they were holding last September. It says the 36-year-old Crown Prince ended up shouting at Mr. Sullivan after he raised the 2018 killing of Saudi Jamal Khashoggi. The prince told Mr. Sullivan he never wanted to discuss the matter again, and the U.S. could forget about its request to boost oil production. The Biden administration's foreign policy when it comes to pretty much everywhere in the world is completely insane. These people so when you look at what they're doing to Saudi, so Biden has said during the debates, he said that he would hold them all accountable. He would treat them as a pariah. You see him using that same language for Russia right now. He said that they released a report all about the killing of Khashoggi. They attacked them. They're demeaning them. They're demonizing them. And then they go out hat in hand. Oh, by the way, they pulled the air defense missile systems from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia back to the United States. And then they go hat in hand and say, please, 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 will you continue to up your oil production? It's like it's absolutely bipolar. Because keep in mind, on one hand, they're trying to tell the Saudis what to do. We're not buying as much oil from Saudi as we used to. Saudi's now buying more oil selling more oil to China. The CCP is a far bigger strategic partner for them than we ever were. And the CCP is going to sit there and say, we don't care what you do. We don't care what happens internally. You have somebody you want to get rid of? We don't care. The CCP might take notes from the Saudis when it comes to that stuff. It's all about money for them. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is also reviving the Iran deal. How do you think the Saudis feel about that? How do you think the Saudis feel about Iran getting nuclear weapons, right? And then you go over there and point your finger and start telling them what they're going to do and attacking them at the same time. These people are highly educated imbeciles. I keep saying this about Secretary of State Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, who we know, by the way, was involved in the dossier operation all the way back in 2016. He's somehow even dumber, somehow actually even dumber than Tony Blinken. It's like the apple keeps falling down. So first you get Tony Blinken, then even dumber that is Jake Sullivan, and then finally you get Joe Biden, who's just dumbest of them all. And Jill Biden's got to tell him to wave at the Easter Bunny, right? So when you're looking at this, and you step back for a second, you realize these are the people that are running our foreign policy. These are people running our country. These are the people who are making decisions for 315 million Americans. And the number, of course, is going up because our borders are being poured across, and they're talking about lifting Title 42 to actually stop catching people and then sending them back. Wonderful, wonderful job that you're doing there as the president holding our foreign policy. You know, we used to have a president that talked about peace. We used to have a president that went to the Saudis and said, you guys should deal with the radical jihadist problem in your area, and we'll work with you, but it should be your job. We used to have a president that talked about peace deals in the Middle East, in Asia, and in Europe. Wouldn't it be nice to have a president like that again?
And I watched you lie, and then
I didn't punch you, by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, you've been in a lot of fights. You've been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you have a close
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not deck you. I was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you tough?
What am I supposed to do? Do this? I'm not sitting here about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a baby.
So what you just heard is a recording of Amber Heard mocking Johnny Depp after she battered him during one of their many arguments during their brief marriage. So you're going to say, I know, I get it. You're going to say, Poso, why are you talking about this? What is it? It has to do with nothing, right? Why are you talking about Johnny Depp, Amber? I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you right now why we're going to talk about this. Because every single one of you in your life has experienced or knows somebody who is a Johnny Depp that's stuck in a relationship with an Amber Heard. Because this is a teachable moment. And because it happens to involve two people that are incredibly famous celebrities. One, I get that a lot of Gen Z doesn't quite get why Johnny Depp is such a big deal. He was literally the most famous actor in the world for like 15 years, right? And so Amber Heard, obviously trying to use his fame to bolster her own career, et cetera, right? Gets involved with him, gets married to him. And I've had, by the way, since I've started tweeting about this trial, I have had so many people from the Hollywood kind of sphere, the movie industry, reaching out to me about Amber Heard. And they're all saying, it's actually kind of sad because they're all saying, look, we always knew this about her. We always knew this about her. Everybody knew this about her. But for some reason, Johnny just couldn't see it. Johnny just couldn't see it. Even Johnny testified at one point that his kids were telling him, get away from her. This is not good for you. So what's going on in the trial? All right, let me back up a little bit. Why is this trial even happening? Why is it happening, by the way, just outside of Washington, D.C.? It's actually only about 30 minutes from where we filmed the show here. I was thinking about, should we go? Should we do something? I don't know. What would we get out of that? We'll see. Still haven't decided yet. But Johnny Depp is suing Amber Heard specifically in this case because of an op-ed that she wrote where? The Washington Post, the same place where Taylor Lorenz writes what she calls journalism today. Amber Heard is the Taylor Lorenz of Hollywood. Here's what's going on. That op-ed was written by the Washington Post, and the Washington Post's computer servers happen to reside in Northern Virginia. So Johnny Depp's lawyers, because they're well-paid lawyers, they filed suit against her in the state of Virginia. State of Virginia, which has actually very strong defamation laws, whereas federally and in many states in the U.S., we do not have very strong defamation laws. State of Virginia does. California, not so much. So Amber Heard lawyers were trying to get this moved over to California. Johnny Depp's lawyers said, no, right here. So this is all about this Washington Post op-ed where she claimed that she was a victim of sexual violence, right? That was the main thing she was talking about in this. Now, she doesn't actually mention Johnny Depp in the article. And they bring this up during the trial. They brought this up at some point and they said, why, she didn't mention you by name, then, how can you even bring the suit? Well, it turns out that under Virginia law, you can sue someone for what's called defamation by implication. And huge shout out, go watch Recchietta Media. They are doing fantastic analysis on this. Totally got sucked into it watching it yesterday. But that's basically the way the case lays out. Johnny Depp's never been able to tell his side of it. Obviously, he lost his entire career, gets kicked out of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, gets kicked out of the Harry Potter prequels. He was playing the main villain there. So lost so much reputation. He's basically PNG, persona non grata. But here's what it's all about, folks. What I hear in those videos is gaslighting. I didn't hit you. You hit me. You started it. I didn't start it. When Johnny Depp's saying again and again, I just wanted to leave. I could feel it getting, heated. I didn't want to continue. And she keeps chasing him. At one point, he even testified that she put nail polish on a handkerchief and then came to him and said that he broke her nose, making him think that he had hit her when he hadn't actually hit her. There's another part of it where they say she threw a vodka bottle at him and it chopped off the top half of his finger. And I'm not even going to get into what supposedly happened to their bed sheets. But I just want to say to anybody out there who's in a relationship like this, male, female, this stuff cuts both ways. You cannot fix them. They have a problem that you don't have the tools to fix. You do not need to be the white knight. You are not going to save them. What you need to do is walk away. And it doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're understanding the situation and seeing it for what it is. Do not lose the best years of your life in a toxic relationship like that.
You felt shock. You felt anger. You felt sadness. Do you feel guilt?
No. I feel that there is. I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me.
Well, Alec Baldwin, speaking of crazy actors and actresses, is now claiming that he's been exonerated in the shooting death of Helena Hutchins, the woman that he shot and killed in New Mexico last year, where he's still yet to face any charges whatsoever for this. Look, and I'll just say it with this. When it comes to Alec Baldwin, when it comes to this case, right, you got to put that before a jury. This is the kind of thing where we know how this works, right? We talk about prosecutors. We talked about Binger, the prosecutor up in Kenosha for Kyle Rittenhouse. By the way, I'm going to be speaking in Kenosha this Saturday, so if you guys are there, speaking up there at a spring meeting. So come out, Kenosha will be there. But these prosecutors have prosecutorial discretion. They can decide whether or not to bring charges. They should bring charges on Alec Baldwin. All of these questions are too big to be left out of the hands of a jury. Put it to trial. Let there be a jury. It looks like manslaughter. Charge him with that. Charge him with criminal manslaughter. See what happens. Roll the dice. Because there is no actor exemption for manslaughter. But listen to this. A new report has come out blaming the production team for shoddy safety that led to a star fatally shooting the cinematographer, even though he himself was a producer. New Mexico safety regulators put out a report saying that the producers were responsible for Helena Hutchins' death. Keep in mind, Alec Baldwin was a producer. But you listen to this. In the report, officials cited a slew of willful and serious violations that led them to their decision and slammed producers for failing to follow safety guidelines. The producers of the Western were ordered to pay the sum by New Mexico safety regulators for safety failures over $100,000 after the death of Helena Hutchins. But what's amazing is that they say, well, Alec Baldwin was really only involved with the script and some of the casting, so it's really not his fault. Okay? Cut me a break. That's manslaughter. That's straight up, it doesn't matter who loaded the gun. Let me tell you something. If this guy was like, you know, Alec Jimbo walking down the street, someone hands him a gun, he points it at someone and pulls the trigger and shoots them, right? And said, oops, I'm so sorry. He'd already be in jail. He'd already be convicted by the end of this. It's only because of the power of his celebrity and the fact that he was the guy that used to play former President Trump on SNL that you're seeing this huge behind-the-scenes machinery work to protect him because he's one of their guys. Because he's one of their guys. That's all they did. They replaced him on SNL. They never really explained why. He just stopped showing up one day. Yeah, because you shot and killed a woman. And it's horrific. Shoots and kills Ukrainian woman Helena Hutchins, the producer. Right? And by the way, when I was watching that video, speaking of this, of Malcolm Nance on MSNBC being interviewed by Joy Reid, and he's got that uniform worn incorrectly, and he's holding an AK. He's got the safety off of that AK. Right? On an AK, the way the selector switch works is safety all the way up, halfway down is full auto, and then all the way down is semi-auto, right? So he's got it halfway. It looks to me from that video that he's got it halfway down. That means it's on full auto as he's talking to a camera crew. So great job, Malcolm Nance. Great job, Doofius. You just went up to a camera crew with your gun on full auto. I guess you went to the Alec Baldwin School of Rifle Safety. Look, these people, they think they're better than everybody else. They think the law doesn't apply to them. They think they're above the rules. They think that whatever they do, because their intentions are so pure and that they're so great, that they're a cut above. Remember, I keep saying it. It's not hypocrisy. It's hierarchy. We don't have the rule of law. We have the two rules of law. We have one set for the aristocrats and one set for the peasantry. Know your place. Know your role. That's what we can learn from the Alec Baldwin situation. And that's it for us here today, Human Events Daily. Remember our promise, our oath, our solemn vow to you: be good, be brief, be gone. Your homework for us: share this out with just one of your normie friends and leave us your 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your politics. What did we talk about today? The Colorado governor offering Disney asylum as he urges Disney to leave Florida. Next, the Prince of Saudi Arabia says he will not release more oil into U.S. markets amid declining U.S.-Saudi relations. Again, thanks to Biden bumbling. Johnny Depp testifying in his defamation trial against ex-wife Amber Heard. Beware Black Widow traps, young kings and queens out there. And finally, Alec Baldwin claiming he's been exonerated, but he actually hasn't. Before we go, today's moment of history is actually a birthday. Today is the 96th birthday of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Happy birthday. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.
What's poppin', people? Welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Root. We got a hard-hitting episode with NFL Hall of Fame linebacker Brian Urlacher. He goes absolutely off on how the NFL has changed since retirement, has some thoughts on COVID, as well as social justice virtue signaling. He definitely does not like men and women's sports, has a lot of thoughts on that, as well as cancel culture. And watch out, Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. Brian Urlacher is coming after you. He absolutely sacks both of those guys and woke media. He's got Aaron Rodgers back, as well as Tony Dungy. Stands up for fatherhood, toughest opponents. Deshaun Watson allegations, he's got some thoughts there. He loves Kyrie Irving. We have so much packed into an episode. This is just part one, people. So without further ado, NFL Hall of Fame linebacker, Brian Urlacher. What's going on, people? Welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Root, sitting next to a Hall of Famer, absolute beast. We got Brian Urlacher in the house. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Not so much a beast anymore.
Oh, you're once a beast, always a beast.
Well, I'll take that. I was a Pro Bowler, always a Pro Bowler. I heard that from a guy who made the Pro Bowl once. So.
Man, we've had some studs in this studio. I know we had Cameron Haynes. Okay. We've had Michael Chandler. We've had some real studs. But before we get into this conversation, if you guys are not subscribed to the podcast already, make sure you go to Apple and Spotify, leave a 5-star review. We're also on YouTube. You can subscribe, press the bell, subscribe, and get all those notifications. It's good stuff. But I'm just going to start out swinging, Brian, here. Obviously, legendary linebacker with the Chicago Bears. Tell me how Chicago has changed since your playing days.
That's a good question. I haven't been back there since then. So, once I
So
I came down to Arizona, started coming in 2006. And then right when I retired, we pretty much came here full time because there's no reason to be there. Like, I grew up in New Mexico. This is closer to New Mexico. I kind of put some roots down here. And right when the weather sucks, number one. But I really haven't gotten back there. Just from watching on the news and stuff and what I see, it's not a safe place. Downtown. The thing I love about Chicago when I lived there was downtown. I didn't live downtown. I lived up north. But downtown was clean. Man, you felt safe down there. You could walk around Michigan Avenue. There's no trash. I compare it to New York, whereas in New York, there's trash everywhere. Chicago downtown, there's no trash anywhere. It's just like a clean, pretty big city. And now I haven't been down there in so long. I wouldn't want to go down there. It's scary.
So it's not place. Like what Juicy Smollett was saying, that while he's walking around in like negative 45 degrees to go get some Subway, it's not a bunch of people yelling, this is MAGA country?
MAGA country. I don't think it's quite like that. I mean, it was in his case, obviously. It was very stressful for his situation. But it's not quite like that.
He's a great actor.
Super good. Almost got away with it.
But during that time, though, too, there was a lot of patriotism in the NFL. Like, that was during, like, we were just had 9/11 happen. It seemed like sports, too, it just brings people together unlike anything else. And people rallied around your team and just sports in general to figure out how can we get away from this absolute tragedy that happened and just reignite this patriotism through sport.
So 9/11 was my second year. I remember it happened I was working out. So Tuesdays are off day. Happened Tuesday morning. I was at the facility working out, and in the training room, they're like, "Oh no!" And I went in there. I actually watched the buildings fall from the training room at Hallis Hall. And that game, we weren't sure about that week if we were going to play or not. So everyone took a vote around the league, and they ended up canceling the games, which they should have done. Yeah. And we played the next week, and the next week, just Soldier Field, great place. But they brought the flag out to cover the whole field. They had some first responders there. It was just unbelievable. The scene was amazing. And plus, it was a week away from football around the country. Everyone's ready to get back to kind of, I guess, take their mind off what was going on in New York. But it does bring people together. That's for dang sure.
Because it seems like right now with sports, it's just like there's so much if you bring up something that is just pro-America, people get pissed off at you because there's a deconstructionist movement going on right now.
Yeah, you can't believe in America. What? We don't even watch, I like to watch college football. I used to like it a lot more. I don't watch no NBA, obviously. Baseball, no. Hockey, I never have really watched, but I would watch hockey if I was into it. College football and college, I did watch a tournament. My daughter goes to KU, so we watched the NCAA tournament because KU was in it. They did pretty well towards the end there. But yeah, we really don't watch a lot of pro sports. I like football. If I bet on the game, I really want to watch it.
Are you a big sports bettor?
I like to bet on football, man. It's fun. Obviously, when I played, I couldn't do it. I didn't even know. Like, people would ask me, like, "Did you know the spread?" I was like, I had no idea what the spread meant. When I played football, I knew we were going to beat the team across from us. That's all it meant to me. I didn't know the spreads. I didn't even know what it meant. So when I first started actually trying to bet, I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't know what the plus and minus meant. I had to figure it out. But
that was probably good though, because
it's a great thing for sure.
See stories like Calvin Ridley right now, where it's like, he's taking a mental health break and he's just throwing down parlays that he's losing.
Well, here's the problem now: it's too easy to bet. They got all these betting apps. I mean, you throw a couple bets down on, was it MGM Bet, and there's Caesars and all these apps.
Yeah,
you can just go on your phone and make a bet. I mean, how easy is that? You know, it's regulated, so it's okay. But I don't think it's safe. You know, you may have see it happen a bit more often than you normally would because it's too easy to do it now.
What's your biggest win in sports betting?
Ooh, sports betting? This year, I don't want to say my numbers, man. I'll say this year, like week 6 or 7 in the NFL, I don't think I lost a bet. I hit like 4 parlays. I'll say Pittsburgh had to beat Seattle at home on Sunday night for me to win. It was my last team I had in the parlay, and the 2 teasers, and they all hit. So and I didn't lose a bet all day.
Are you going are you most of the time you're going like straight money line with those parlays?
No.
Or are you going like spreads here and there?
Like parlays
teasers?
are fun because you just go. I like to do the money line, the favorites on the money line. Sometimes I'm not a big dog guy unless I'm betting the spread. And this year would have been great to be a dog better because the dogs did great all season long. But yeah, I don't know. You would think I'd be better having played the game, but I'm not a very good bettor. Mm-hmm. I wish I was better.
How would you compare this season to any other season that you've been a part of or seen? Because, man, I think this year's NFL playoffs were maybe the best in my entire life. Like, you had a full round where it came down to a last-second kick, a last-second play. It was unbelievable.
I think the most amazing thing about the playoffs this year, and this was just incredible to me, how they just got rid of COVID. It was amazing because all season long, it was like they should get the doctors in the NFL to work for the government because it was amazing because all season long you had 4 or 5 guys on the COVID list, not sure if he'll be back, same thing. And then once the playoffs started, guess how many positive tests the NFL had? 0. That was the most incredible thing about the playoffs. I mean, the games were great, but just the way they were able to get rid of COVID and kind of finally solve the problem of how to get rid of COVID. It was amazing. I don't know how they did it.
And that's what's crazy, too. You saw some news that they're just like, all right, well, if you're asymptomatic, we're not going to test you. It's like, wow, what a concept.
Really? Why not? I mean, it was just, or if you're vaccinated, unvaccinated, there were so many rules I couldn't follow it every week. But they got it right, obviously, in the playoffs because these guys are NFL players. They're in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. If they do get it, they're not going to be out for a day or two, maybe. So.
What do you think about the position that some players were put in? Because you had Cole Beasley that was adamantly saying, I'm not pro or anti-vaccine. I'm just like saying I am pro-choice here. Yeah. We are freedom-loving Americans. And then we even had Harrison Butker on, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah. And he said, I would much rather retire than go against my morals and convictions and be forced to get a medical procedure that I don't feel comfortable with. And you're hearing things like this, and there's a lot of young guys. Like you were a young guy in the NFL once where like, I'm just doing everything I can.
The pressure to get on the field, the pressure. And so the thing about it is like the guys who may have been fringe guys, like making a team, they're getting that shot no matter what because they don't want to have a reason for the team to cut them beyond what they can do on the field. Does that make sense? Yeah. So all those guys are going to comply. They want to do exactly what the NFL says to do. And then you got the older guys who are more established, Cole, Harrison. They're like, it's my body. I'll decide what I want to put in it. But the stuff they've made them do every week, the testing every day, the wear your mask in meetings, separate from this and that, don't go out during the week. You can't be out of your house at certain times during the week. I mean, that's a little much to me. I mean, it's a free country. It used to be a free country.
You didn't know that COVID's nocturnal?
No, and here's a cool thing about COVID. COVID lives, so if you're walking in a restaurant, you have to wear your mask, but when you sit down, you can take it off. It lives like 5'10" and above. That's what I've learned over the last, 2 years. It lives at certain levels, and it is nocturnal. I did figure out some things.
Honestly, we're screwed.
Like, we're too tall.
We're both you're 6'4", right?
6'4". Just wear a mask. You're good. Just put your mask on because it'll protect you before everything.
Some people were bringing up you should put in some dining tables inside of classrooms, and then you'd be able to take your mask off when you sit down, right?
Or when you go to Vegas and you want to gamble without wearing a mask at the table, just put a dining room in there, or pretend like you're at a club because you don't have to wear them at the clubs in Vegas. Mm-hmm. There was a short time there where you had to wear it everywhere in the casino except at the club. That makes a lot of sense, right? Where there's the most confined group of people, you don't have to wear it.
It's not supposed to make sense.
No, it's not. You're right.
It's all about compliance.
What they can do for you. What they can do to you. I'm sorry, not for you.
And one of the biggest bummers for me is I feel these kind of conversations should have been happening during this time, but they silenced everyone. They just don't have some different opinion. And if you do, all of a sudden you are the worst of the worst. You're not wearing a mask, you're killing grandma. If you're not getting a shot, you just care about yourself. And then there's a lot of backlash from fans and media members and media members, there's a vast majority of them that are on the left, and they've really shown their politics. Has that changed from your playing days?
So when I played, it didn't matter. We didn't pay attention to it. And I really didn't think about any of this stuff till probably 4 or 5 years ago. Didn't matter to me, you know? And then it would be really difficult to be on an NFL team these days. I would say that because of all the politics that goes on. Like none of that mattered back when I played. It didn't matter if you were left or right, middle. No one cared. Now it seems to be an issue on everything you do, whether you stand for the anthem, kneel for the anthem, whether you're vaccinated, unvaccinated. That shouldn't matter, you know. And back when I played, thank goodness none of that stuff mattered.
So what do you think about all that right now too? Because people need to have an explanation for, you know, LeBron and everybody else in the bubble. Obviously, you had some thoughts. You had some thoughts about that I think were really important.
Yeah.
But if you say something like black people are getting hunted every single time they leave their door, you need to explain that. And media members need to say, like, what do you actually mean by that? What are the stats and data behind that? Because if that's actually happening, I think we're all coming together and say, what can we do to help?
Exactly right. But people of LeBron's stature say things, and they're harmful. Some of the things he says are harmful. He has nothing to back up what he says. You know, some of the stuff he says, it's just, I'm like, where's that come from? That's so far out of left field. And maybe that's just the way he sees things. Obviously it is, or what he was told. But it's tough, man, because so many people see what he says and they believe it. And maybe that's why, you know, he can do no wrong in some people's eyes. I personally don't believe a lot of stuff he says or don't really pay attention to it because I don't know where it comes from.
Because I don't think LeBron is a dumb guy. He's obviously a great businessman. I think he has
great basketball player.
Great basketball player, and I think he's done a lot for the community that we try to bring up on this show too. Like there is an aspect of like the art and separating the art from the politics. He is one of the best players and one of the greatest athletes we are going to ever see in our lifetime, or maybe even just in the history of basketball in general.
Top 5 for sure.
But when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's like, well, you need to be able to explain yourself.
Well, the problem is now, like you didn't hear back in the day, you wouldn't hear basketball players say the stuff he says. It's never been an issue until now. And now everyone's speaking out on certain issues, but up till the last couple of years, it never happened before. People just didn't say anything because it was probably safer to stay out of it. Now the cool thing is to say something so you can be popular with certain groups, or, you know, you're like, oh, I'm standing up for this, I'm standing up for that. As long as you're on one side, you can say that. But if you're on the other side, don't say a word. But you cannot say anything if you're on the other side. But if you're on this side of an issue, good to go. Say as much as you want. You can't be wrong. But if you're on the other side of the issue, you better keep your mouth shut because you'll get canceled.
And then you kind of had a situation like that. Like you were basically canceled, and
well, yeah,
like kind of
lots of mean things were said to me.
And,
yeah.
But you have people like Max Kellerman. I know.
It's,
like what he had to say saying that you are susceptible to low quality information, that you live in a Fox News silo of extreme right wing propaganda. When you were talking about the Milwaukee Bucks,
do you have the quote that or the Instagram thing that I posted?
Yeah. So
let's say what I said.
You said Brett Favre played the Monday night game that day his dad died, threw 4 TDs in the first half, and was a legend for playing in the face of adversity. NBA players boycott the playoffs because a dude reaching for a knife, which you were saying this right when it happened. Yep. This is true.
Yep.
You've been vindicated. Yep. And you said he was wanted on a felony sexual assault warrant, was shot by police.
Yeah.
Tell me what's wrong.
So that was a repost from somebody else's story.
Yeah.
But everything in there is true. Nothing I said was made up. Nothing had to do with race. Nothing had to do with anything else except they were all facts. That's all it was. Mm-hmm. And then I got, oh, you're a racist, you're this. And Max, by the way, Max is just blabs on TV. That's all he does all the time. You know, I don't watch their show. I can't stand watching him talk. But I didn't watch Fox News, so I don't know what he's talking about. I didn't watch any news back then. I damn sure do now. I really enjoy watching Fox News now.
You like Jesse Waters, right? That's
Jesse's great. Gutfeld's funny as hell, too. Obviously, Tucker gets it in pretty good. Is it Samantha Bream? Is it Samantha Bream?
I think Samantha Bream.
Anyway, she's great. With the late night news, she's good. But yeah, Fox is good. They got, you know what I like is the 5, too.
5 is great.
What's her name? Harris?
Faulkner?
Faulkner. She is great.
Yeah, it feels like you kind of got the Avengers together.
When they go on there, her and Kaylee and was it Emily? I don't know. Anyway, and they always had the one guy in the middle. Poor guy. 4 guys, 4 girls. and one guy in there. They're all beating up on him. But yeah, I do watch Fox Now thanks to him because I never really watched the news before. But when he said that, I was like, oh, maybe I'll check it out. So just when I want to get the real information of what's going on in the world, I'll tune to Fox.
What was that time like though? Because you obviously got so much backlash, and then you even had people like Stephen A. Smith that saying that Brian Urlacher exposed himself and his level of thinking, calling you an idiot, calling you someone that is just devaluing black lives. Like they went so far to the end of the spectrum.
And it had nothing to do with color or race or anything like that. It was frustrating because people were reaching out to my kids, which pissed me off, which I'm okay if you want to come to me. I got no problem with you coming to me. I can handle myself.
You can take on anybody. People know that.
Verbally, however you want to do it. Physically, we can talk, but don't come to my kids or my family or my wife or anything like that, or my sister, my brother. Don't mess with us. But that was the thing that pissed me off the most, was just people going at my family. Come at me all you want to, but don't talk about my family. But like I said, everything in that statement was true, and it had nothing to do with race because it really didn't. And I didn't post it to have to do with race, but it was turned into that because that's what fit at that time. So everyone turned it that way, and then you saw where it went after that.
And I think what I gotta love about you and your playing days, and even outside of it, is just you're standing firm. It's just like I'm gonna take on anybody. Obviously, like don't mess with me, but you seem to always be prepared.
Well, I wasn't prepared for the backlash I got, but people are like, you should take that down. You should apologize. For what? I didn't say anything wrong. Everything in that statement was true. So there's really nothing to apologize for. I simply stated Brett Favre played after his dad passed away, and the NBA took a knee, or they didn't want it. They boycotted because a man got shot for pulling a knife on the police.
Yeah,
that's all true.
The Milwaukee Bucks in the bubble said we are going to not play this game because of Jacob Blake.
And it's all true. Everything I said was true. It had nothing to do with race or anything else besides the facts. That was all.
Did you? You're not really watching the NBA at all, but
I haven't watched it in 3 years. Yeah, are they still playing?
They're playing right now. They just, as we talk right now, they have another day of playing games for the playoffs.
Gotcha.
But did you hear about the protester that was on the court?
I did not.
There was a protester on the court for the Clippers Timberwolves game, and it was someone that was just like an animal rights activist. And at first, you're trying to figure out, like, well, what is this person doing? They tried gluing their hand to the court.
How do they have time to get out there? Where was this person? Like in the middle of the court?
Yeah, so on the other end of the court, they were shooting free throws.
Okay.
And then on this end of the court, originally the broadcast thought that it was maybe an arena worker that fell.
Or maybe, you always see the guys cleaning the floor at the other end.
Yeah. But what I loved about finding out exactly what they were standing against is, like, I guess they didn't like the owner and what they're doing with, like, some animal cruelty stuff along the lines of, like, bird flu nonsense or something.
Okay.
And I'm still saying I think that protest was more legitimate than the protests we saw in the NFL, the WNBA, and the NBA about Jacob Blake and George Floyd.
Yeah. Well, they put the names on their jerseys. The NFL put them on their helmets or something like that.
Yeah, they still have like stop hate, end racism.
Yeah. I saw the end zones this year. There were some slogans on the back of the end zone. I'm okay with all that. I mean, if you can put a slogan on your helmet, why don't you get to choose which one? I'm sure they give the guys 3 or 4 to choose from because you see those on every guy's helmet. Why can't you put what you want on your helmet instead of what they choose for you?
Exactly.
Because I'm sure there's some guys who wouldn't. The guys who just have like bears on their helmet or whatever, or it's either put bears on your helmet or you can choose from these 3 slogans. But why can't I put what I want on there? You know, you guys are giving me what I can put on there. I don't want to choose any of those. I want to choose what I want on there.
Yeah, especially when it came to the NBA bubble and they had their social justice jerseys. Every single player had to like say her name.
Yes, I saw.
And it starts with us. And you have other guys that are like, I want to put Jesus Saves on my jersey.
Nope.
No, you want to put Free Hong Kong? Nope.
Not Cantor. Yeah, right. He was great. He's still great. The things he says.
We had him on this show too, and he was fantastic, breaking all that stuff down.
And he knows his facts. He knows what he's talking. I mean,
because he did his research.
Yes, he's smart. You listen to him like, damn, that dude is. He knows what he's talking about. I'm gonna listen to him. He's not just up there blabbing. He's saying things that actually make sense. Unlike myself, he knows what he's talking about. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff. Like, I'm okay with that as long as you can let me put on my jersey what I want to put on my jersey.
Is there ever a time you feel like now that we're in this social media age, that you're trying to like grow your brand a little bit, or you're just kind of like, hey, this is kind of like my life. This is what I'm going to post. I feel like there's a lot of players now that have to worry about like, oh, maybe I'm going to try to cater to fans, but I want to say something that's going to maybe create some sort of backlash or hurt my sponsorships or something.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I just, if I do something funny with the kids or on the golf course, I'll put it on my social media. I have a couple partnerships. I'll put stuff on there for that. But thank goodness when I played, there was no social media. I'm so happy that during my career, and I think towards the end, maybe there got to be more, but when I played, there was no social media. And I'm glad about that because these players have to do with so much more backlash now because people can reach out to them now. They can send them a DM. They can do things that back in the day, you had to actually know someone to talk to them. But now they can just go on their social media and send them a note or whatever, or go on one of their pictures and post something. So, I'll post what I want to post. I'm not too worried about it.
What would you tell NBA, NFL, any pro athlete right now about social media and how to be careful? Because there's so many kids that you might have said something when you were 12 and then you're just quoting a rap lyric. It's like, why are you not going
How
through?
about Josh Allen when he said something like when he was 19 and they brought it all the way back when Stephen A made a big stink about it when he was getting drafted.
Of course,
he dropped a certain word allegedly. I'm not a huge social media fan. Honestly, I don't like. It's fun for me to go on there and check it and just look at people's stories. And I love the animal ones; those are my favorite. I like when people share those. But
do you got do you follow like a golden retriever page or something like that?
We have a golden, so I do like golden retrievers. There are some golden. The cats make me laugh. I love the Nat Geo and the Discovery Channel stuff. But if I had to give some advice, I don't know, man. Just be careful. That's all you can really say. Try not to post something. I guess if you don't want to deal with the backlash, don't post it or don't comment on someone's post. Just
Could
be
you
careful.
imagine if Bears fans that you interacted with on a daily basis were on social media like they are now? Like, what was that interaction like with Chicago fans? Because they're nuts.
They are crazy.
They're dedicated.
Good crazy. They're not crazy like they're nuts. They're just they love their team. Man, if I actually had a chance to talk to some of them, because now with social media you can do that. You can go. Was it the live streams you can do, and people can jump in there and talk.
And
to
then
you.
even just DM someone. Can
DMs,
just send, it's almost like sending a text to you.
It is
right
if you check them. But that would have been different. Yeah, I don't know that would have been a lot different than when I played. Because I don't know if I would have had it because I'm not very techie. So my wife just had to show me. I think it's been about 3 years now since I've had my actual Instagram on my phone. Before then, she ran it for me, and she's like, "Hey,
what a gal!
This happened. Hey, I'm going to post this. Cool, thank you." Now I'm still not good at posting. She helps me out with that, but I'm getting better. I can watch stories and read messages and stuff like that. I'm getting better.
What's the wildest interaction you ever had with the Chicago Bears fan?
Oh, the fan. I don't know. We were at dinner last night here in Arizona, and I really appreciate the people who just like, hey, nice to meet you. Thank you I'm a fan. And then they walk away. I'm like, dude, that was nice, man. Really nice guy. Nice guy last night. Stood up at dinner. We were sitting and having a hamburger at this place, and the guy walked up and said, hey, I'm a Bears fan. I'm from Chicago. Live here now. Awesome. Nice to meet you. I was like, dude, thanks. And I want to talk more. And he just walked away. But there's some weird stuff. People get excited to see it, and I appreciate the people who get really excited. And it's easier now because my kids are older and they've been around it for so long that they're just like, oh, Dad's going to say hi to this guy, whatever. But when they were younger, man, it was my oldest she used to get pissed. She would get mad at people when they would come up. She would like get in between us and like not let them talk to me, or she'd be like, he has to go. So she was feisty and she got tired of it.
She was like your bodyguard.
Yeah, she was good, and if she saw someone taking a picture, she would jump in front. If I wasn't paying attention, she would jump in front of the picture. She was good. She's still good. They're still very protective of me now when we go places and do stuff.
When you were in your playing days and you're jumping into Chicago and you're like, man, this is just the monsters of the Midway.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping into a legendary organization here. Like, what was that feeling like being in a first-round pick? I think you were pick number 9.
Number 9,
right?
yeah.
And you're like, did you feel like a real sense of pressure to like, man, we got some dedicated fans here, and I want to make them proud, and I want to make my family proud, and I want this place to get back to where it used to be?
My family's the number one thing. The fans never crossed my mind. When you're young coming into the league, and the way I was, I didn't really have a position when I got drafted. I was a safety in college. They were going to put me at Sam linebacker, which they did my first training camp, and I stunk. I got beat out by Rosie. It's funny. I did a podcast the other day with 2 of my old teammates. They were second-year players my rookie year, and Rosie, I got drafted to take Rosie's spot. He was a Sam linebacker, and the first day I was a starter. I didn't have to beat him out. I was drafted. He was out, and he was good. He was really good. So 2 weeks in training camp, I was on the bench, Rosie was starting. So, it's nerve-wracking because I didn't know. I'd played safety in college, and then going down to Sam, linebacker, was terrible because I was a space player. I needed to have space to operate. And Sam, if you don't know, you're on the line of scrimmage pretty much on the tight end every play, jamming him or spilling the run or just it's boring as hell. You don't get to do anything. So then when Barry got hurt in week 2, he's like, Coach Splotch goes, you're going to play Mike now. I was like, I never played Mike. What do I do? Just run to the football. I said, okay.
I can do that.
And then I never played another position in my life since that day. But training camp was tough because you can't screw up. You're expected to know what to do every single play. And your coaches hold you accountable, but your teammates hold you accountable. So when I screwed up, there was repercussions from my teammates. They were yelling at me. The older guys don't care if you're a rookie, a first-round draft pick, a free agent. They don't care. Do your job because their job's on the line. Every play, the NFL is such a cutthroat business. If you don't do your job, it may affect someone else's ability to do theirs as well. So when I didn't do my job right in training or in preseason my rookie year, I was definitely let know by other players I wasn't doing my job right.
All right, we're going to take a little break from our awesome conversation with Brian Urlacher and talk about food. Some good food from our friends at Good Ranchers. Food's a huge part of the sports experience. What if I told you could buy food for that watch party and donate to TPUSA without even leaving your home? You say, John, get out of town. Now you can with Good Ranchers. They sell 100% American meat, and they believe so much in what we're doing, they're going to donate 50 buckaroos to TPUSA on your behalf when you purchase from them. Good Ranchers delivers steakhouse quality beef, chicken, and seafood right to your door. With code TPUSA, you can donate $50 to our mission while getting absolutely delicious food. I'll tell you what. Oh, man, it's getting hot in here. I'm starting to get the meat sweats. Woo! Head on over to goodranchers.com/TPUSA today. Get ribeyes, New York strips, gourmet burgers, and more. Order now, people. Come on. Promo code TPUSA and $50 will be donated to our mission of sharing and preserving true American values. Go to goodranchers.com/TPUSA to get a box today. Oh, man, all this talk. Once again, use promo code TPUSA at goodranchers.com/TPUSA. Do good while you eat good. Now back to our conversation. What was the biggest thing you learned in your early days?
Don't mess up. I was going to say another word, but you have to know what you're doing every single play. Like I said, you have to be sharp. You got to study. And people like football, you just react. No, you don't. There's so much studying that goes on and so many things that go on pre-snap that people don't understand and realize that happened. I didn't realize either my rookie year. I didn't know I needed to be doing this and that because college was easy. I line up, I'd run to the football. It was simple. The NFL got that way for me. When you're not thinking in football or play any sport, you're going to play really well because you're not slowing down. You're just reacting and running to the football.
Because you got to be a couple steps ahead because, you're going from college to the best of the best from their colleges are here. Like, you can't just run to the football. You might got to run to the spot you're going to meet them at.
You got to take angles. Angles. People don't understand how big of a deal angles are in football. And it is in ping pong as well. I play I play ping pong almost every night with my kids, and I'm like, angles are a big deal in ping pong. Anyway, but yeah, angles are a big deal.
Is that what you're telling these kids growing up? If you want to be like me, play some ping pong, learn your angles.
Take better angles, you'll be much better off at what you can do. Problem is you take an angle that you think you're fast enough to take, and the guy outruns your angle. That's not good. That happened to me in the NFL as well. But yeah, you got to understand where you need to fit as a linebacker. Run fits, what gap's yours. And if someone goes in your gap, you got to fill their gap. That's why I think Lance and I were so good together. Lance Briggs. We played 10 years side by side. Like if we would screw up on a play, whatever, it didn't matter. We just cover for the guy. We played long enough together. We could figure out where the other guy was going to be. So that helped a lot. But you got to know where you have to fit every single play.
Lance Briggs, Sacramento guy. That's where
Sacktown. That's your spot. Yep. He was a good football player. Man, he was good. He was the most instinctive player I've ever played with. Like he would stress me out because so Sam was our will. Say I got the B gap and Lance has the A gap, which is the gap right next to the center. My man Lance would be out here by the slot. I'm like, Lance, you have the A gap. He's like, oh. He's just looking at his head like, yeah, I got it. And he'd always end up there, but he's always sugaring or showing somewhere else before the snap. But he'd always end up in his gap. Maybe right on time, but my man was always there. But he was good. Man, he was good. He was just instinctive and just kind of knew where the ball was going every play.
Who was the most inspirational guy that you played with or played against?
Ooh, inspirational I played with. That's a good question. Dang, can I use a coach?
Yeah, you can definitely use a coach.
Man, I played for some great coaches. And people, I think coaches are underappreciated because, I know I got better when a certain coach got to Chicago. When Bob Babich came to Chicago, who's my linebacker coach for 9 years, he was my presenter for the Hall of Fame. Yeah. I got better, and I was pretty good before he got there. But when he got there, I kind of took that next step mentally because physically, I was always a pretty good athlete. I could always run. I was big, but
man, you had a fast 40 time. Like you were probably one of the fastest linebackers.
At the combine, I was I think 4.5 something, which is not that fast, you know. But it was a slow turf, they call it, the slow track in Indy. Now it's the fast track. But in my pro day, I ran like a 4.4 something.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to go by, the 4.4 something.
Yeah, we're going with that.
Yeah, 258, 4.4 something. But once Bob got there, I took the next step mentally. I knew exactly what the D line was doing, the corners, the safeties. I knew what everyone's job was. And as a middle linebacker, that's what you're supposed to do. And I didn't figure that out till they got there because he grilled us every day on just gaps and this. I mean, it was so boring sitting in meetings because we never talked about anything but run fits, gaps, this, that, and we never got I used to fall asleep in meetings before he got there. Now I'm like, I'm tired. I'm gonna take a nap. You know, our coach would just sit back there and talk and run the little prompter thing and never wake us up because you didn't know.
You just got the laser pointer.
He would literally sit back there and talk the whole time and never ask us questions. I'm up there nodding off. Lance is against the wall. But then when Bob got there, Bob's standing here asking me questions. All right, Lack, what do you got here? Lance, what are you doing here? Brian goes here. What do you got there? Get on the board and draw this. And I was like, dang, this dude knows his stuff. So as you got a guy talking to you like that, you want to get into it. And you know, we try and screw him up too with the defense. But once he got there, to answer your question, sorry, inspirational. Probably Bob Babbitt just challenging me. And Coach Smith was great too, but just challenging me to get better every day because he knew we were good, but like mentally was where I took the next step when he got there because he challenged me every single day, whether it was walkthroughs, practice, meetings, always trying to get me to be better. Player-wise, other teams, gosh, I don't know, man. Like who inspired me to play better? Is that what you want to know?
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like there's times where there's great rivalries in sports, and you could hate the person on the other side of the field, but you have such a massive respect for them.
So I grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan. I grew up in New Mexico. The Cowboys were our team, and the Cowboys played the Packers every year. I feel like I love Brett Favre.
Yep.
That dude was a badass. He still is, you know.
Gunslinger.
So when I got to Chicago, I was like, Brett Favre, I'm playing again. And my first game against him, I sacked him. I was like, dude, I'm the man. I sacked Brett Favre. And we actually beat him 28-24 at Green Bay. We were 0-4, and we went up to Green Bay and beat him. But he was always he was so tough. Like if that doesn't inspire you as a football player, a quarterback, as tough as that dude is, especially a defensive player, to be on the field, he played hurt. He played dinged up. He was a tough guy, man. His father passed away. Obviously, he ended up playing the next 2 days or whatever. But
what an inspirational moment, though. Like when you look at some of these, like me growing up, I'll never ever forget watching that because it's a primetime
Monday night game.
Oh my gosh! And that was going back to
and they kept showing his wife, and then he showed Brett. You can see he's been crying. You can see he's upset. First half, 4 Javon Walker, I think, caught 2. Bubba Franks, but it was unreal. No, Bubba wasn't there anymore. I think it was Wesley Walls who caught the other 2 touchdowns. But they ran through the Raiders as well. And I think the whole team responded, not just Brett, but when something like that happens, you see the whole team respond and rally around that guy. It was awesome.
Because I feel like in moments like that, that's when you reveal what your real character is and how much, because no one's forcing him to play football at that point, but he's deciding the best way I know how to honor my father is by playing this game.
Yeah, the game he taught me to play when I was a kid. I think his dad was his coach. When he was a youngster as well. But yeah, just to go out there and perform the way he did with all the emotions and the spotlight. I mean, everyone was watching that game. First of all, it's Monday night, but to have that situation happen when it did, and then for them to be on Monday night, just kind of a perfect storm, I guess, for everyone to see what was going on.
And I feel like right now, too, there's an aspect of sports. You're going to look at players like Brett Favre and others where it's like, how is this going to inspire me to be a better person? Not just a better football player, but just even talking about fatherhood. I know right now Tony Dungy is under fire for no reason whatsoever. He basically said here, obviously –
You know the reason.
Yeah, I mean, he's with Governor Ron DeSantis.
If you're on one side, you can say whatever you want to. But if you're on the other side, you can't say anything that could possibly conflict with what they believe in.
And he's talking about this fatherhood bill where there's $70 million that are going to be advocated or allotted to different initiatives to make sure fatherhood is something that is essential in society, because it really is. And he brought up even the biggest flack that Tony Dungy got. For everybody that is not familiar with the story, I know we covered it on Wednesday's live show, but talking about how 95% of 19, 20, 21-year-olds are in prison don't have a father. We're not talking about socioeconomic.
Yeah.
We're not talking about race relations things. We're talking about boys that are growing up, and statistically, they are at a disadvantage because they don't have a father in the home. And Tony Dungy is standing by that, and all of a sudden he's some sort of villain for standing up for fatherhood.
He's one of the best people you'll ever meet. I played against, they beat us in the Super Bowl when he was with the Colts in 2006, but he is one of the best human beings you're going to meet. He doesn't care about sides. He cares about what's right.
Yep.
You know, I think I don't know what the bill was. I don't have any idea, but it seems to make sense that you would want to put some funding behind men being in their children's lives. It makes sense with the stats you just told me, at least. And he's standing behind that. You're not going to find a better man than him. Anything he stands behind is usually a pretty solid thing. He's a man of faith. But yeah, if like I said, if it's something you agree with on the other side, doesn't fit a narrative, I guess, that someone's trying to push. But it doesn't make sense to me how they're jumping all over him.
I feel like there's just so many initiatives in the NFL that and there are some good ones, no doubt. And there's definitely some progress that the NFL has made in certain communities at times. But when you talk about fatherhood, there's way too often that we see stories about athletes just grew up in a single parent home. And most of the time it's just with their mother. And
I was a single parent. My mom was a single parent until she married my stepdad when I was 15. So it was just my mom. Well, she got divorced when I was 7, and she was single until she married my stepdad at 15. So she had 3 jobs, raising us 3 kids. So I'm sure and it's weird how most athletes come out of that. Like you said, there's probably not just high stat for athletes, but for, I would say, the whole country, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not just athletes, but the whole country has probably high stats for single mothers.
And your stepdad is someone you got pretty close with, right?
That's my guy.
He
my dad.
became like your role model.
Yeah. So he, Troy Leonard's his name, but he after him and my mom got married, he's my dad. I call him dad. I've always called him dad. But yeah, I was very fortunate that he came into our lives when he did, because he didn't put up with anything. My mom didn't either, by the way, but he just kind of reaffirmed what she was putting down. He was the man. We'd get swats with Uncle Henry if we messed up. It took twice for me to get swats with the board, and that was it. Yeah, back when you could actually spank your kids, I got spanked when I was a kid.
Oh man, I got whooped.
Oh,
I was definitely I always felt like I was a pretty good kid, but I think you would ask my parents and be like, "Yeah, he was a good kid, but man, around the house, we had to give him a whooping a few times." And man, did I learn? I learned today.
You learn how to act for other people, right? At home, this is what people talk about their kids, like, "Oh, he's such a little punk at home. He's this and that." I go, "Well, how is he at school? How is he at other people's?" "He's great." I go, "Who cares then?" If you have to deal with it, you have to spank him and this and that. That's okay. Make sure you handle him at home. And that way when he goes off to school, he acts right. Or he or she, when he goes up to their friend's house, yes, sir, no, sir, very polite. But at home, so you have to drop the hammer every once in a while. That's okay, as long as the other parents or teachers aren't coming to you saying, "Hey, we got some issues there."
Do you feel like there was an issue during your playing days when it came to domestic violence and sexual assault? Because it feels like we've covered that on our show. And there's obviously times where I feel like maybe specifically Roger Goodell is kind of been light on some of these, and then someone like Calvin Ridley that we brought up earlier when we were talking about betting.
$1,500.
It's like he's out the entire
You
season.
did the worst thing you could possibly do. There's no chance you're playing in the football game and you bet on it. How could you ever do that? That's the worst thing ever. It's dumb.
And then people like Greg Hardy that were constantly getting in trouble there, and it's just there is an aspect I do understand with sports where if you can play, you have. These teams are going to do whatever the hell they can to get you on the field because it's going to sell tickets, it's going to sell jerseys, and it's going to help you win games. But I feel like if they really did care about some of these initiatives, push fatherhood, and then actually do whatever you can to stop domestic violence and sexual assault.
So when I don't remember a lot of instances of that when I played, during the NFL or throughout the NFL. I'm sure there were some I don't remember. But when I feel like Goodell, when I played, was if you did something here, this happened. He was there's no gray area with him when I played. Yeah. If you did this, that happened. It was black and white. You do this, that happened. You do that happened. There was no gray area in between. So guys knew if they messed up, they were going to get suspended, or you're going to face some kind of punishment or fine or whatever if you did this or that. And now I don't pay attention enough anymore to know what's really going on. But the thing I don't like is if, say, a guy allegedly does something off the field and doesn't get in trouble by the police where he's acquitted. Why is the NFL jumping in there saying, "Well, we're going to lay our tally on him. We're going to," because say a woman falsely accuses you of something, but you get acquitted of all things criminally, whatever. But the NFL's like, "No, we're going to punish him now because that shouldn't have happened." Well, He doesn't have control of what the woman said. You know, it just, there's some things I don't like about that because, I mean, Goodell has a tough job. I get it. But I just don't like the way if a person gets off with our justice system, then that should be the end of it. The NFL shouldn't be able to tally them anymore or take their money or suspend them. Unless there's something else going on, like drug-wise or whatever, they shouldn't be able to do anything else to them.
Because that's what I feel like is odd in this entire situation when you hear about the Washington football team. And there's a whole investigation into this team because there's
350,000 emails.
And the only thing
Here's
you
4
get
of
out
them.
and the only thing you get is John
Gruden from 2011 when he wasn't even a coach?
Exactly.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that. I was so mad. I mean, I don't agree with what he said, but he wasn't an employee of the NFL. He was not an employee of the NFL. He was talking to one of his buddies. Was it Bruce Allen or whoever it was? Somebody for the Redskins.
Yep.
But these out there, all those emails. Those are the 4 or 5 emails you release for John Gruden. There's nothing else in there?
This was an investigation into what formerly known as the Washington Redskins.
They're still the Redskins to me.
Yeah.
They're always going to be the Redskins.
And I respect that.
Yeah, they're always the
Definitely,
Redskins.
No doubt.
Yep.
What do you think about the Commanders? The name now.
Who's the Commanders?
It went from the Redskins to the Washington football team, and they're now the Commanders.
They're the Redskins.
I like it.
They're the Redskins. I don't know. I don't like all these name changes. I like teams. I grew up with them a certain way, and that's kind of how I remember them. So that's how I refer to them as well.
But with this situation here, it's like, and then you look at the Deshaun Watson situation where it's like, obviously someone is innocent before they're proven guilty. No doubt. But if you have
Used to be.
Yes.
Used to be. Now you're guilty until proven innocent, I feel like. It's flipped.
Speaking of that, though, because when you think about guilty before proven innocent, a lot of people think about Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh,
and then Max Kellerman brought that one up. It's like, so according to sources, so he liked something that was favorable for Kyle Rittenhouse, someone that just went out and he was just there to shoot
people. He was a murderer. Yeah.
Oh, also too, Kyle's been around. Kyle's been around here. Kyle, if Max Kellerman is not a part of your lawsuit, add him to the list, brother.
Yeah, get him on there. Get some of that punk's money. What were we saying before that? Sorry.
But basically,
guilty. Yeah, the Deshaun Watson thing. I don't know. That's a big deal. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's being said. But they're all civil.
Yeah.
There's nothing criminally that they're not pursuing him criminally. They're all civil lawsuits, and it's all the same lawyer representing every one of them.
Yep.
What do you believe? I mean, Deshaun seems like a good guy. I don't know. I've never seen otherwise. You know, I don't know what to believe. What the media pushes this and that, so I don't know what to believe. I just got paid $240 million guaranteed from the Browns. That's a lot of bread.
And he's making $1 million next year, though. So if he does not play next year, like that's the
good by his agent. I didn't know that.
That's the weird part.
So
about
they know.
Like,
they know what's coming.
I mean, that's where it's like there's potential. That's where it seems like kind of sleazy to me, though. Right?
By who? By his agent or by the team?
Like there is the smart, like business aspect, smart, but it's also just like this guy just made and had the biggest contract, biggest guaranteed contract.
Well, he made 30-something million last year too for not playing it down, or however much it was.
But I feel like with something like this, I think they even signed him before the criminal lawsuits were figured out and dismissed. So something like this, I kind of see here is like a business aspect, smart, agent aspect, smart, player aspect, smart. But like from a cultural and maybe moral perspective, it's kind of like
questionable. Like you gave him all this money, but there could still be some consequences for what he allegedly did. Yeah, that's a chance you take, though. I mean, it's professional sports. If you got a guy who's talented like that, or who you deem to be the savior for your franchise, you take that risk, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to find a quarterback in the NFL that he's good. He's really good. So it's hard to do. It's hard to find a guy like that and actually have a chance to get them. And you know what they're. It's not like going through the draft where you're not sure who's going to be good or not. It's not like that. This guy's proven to be good. So I guess you take whatever risk you can take to get him.
And I think along these lines, though, when you're talking about, I want to go back to the Bears and Packers rivalry.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's talking about, I own y'all. Like
he's the best I've ever played against. I say this every time anyone asks me who the best quarterback I played against, it's Aaron Rodgers. No doubt. I mean, he
said that you were his favorite player, right? Didn't he say that at some point?
I don't know, but I appreciate it.
Dan Patrick brought that up or something.
We had some great interactions pre-snap, like right before the ball was snapped. We would he'd be changing his call, changing his call. I'm not sure if he was or not, but we'd be changing ours. But just even between plays, he's a great dude. I enjoy playing against him. He's competitive as hell, which I like, but he's respectful. You know, he didn't. I don't feel like he did it when I played against him. He was not disrespectful at all. He was just freaking good, and it was frustrating because he's always been good. It's annoying. He doesn't put the football in jeopardy. You watch his pick numbers, like 2, 3, 4 a year. How do you do that?
Yep.
How do you throw 4 picks in a 17 game
A little bit
season?
different from Brett Favre.
Yeah, well, but that's why I like Brett Favre.
Yeah.
Brett Favre would take, right, as a kid, I was like, oh, he's got a great pick. But so when we played him, our coach was like, hey, you're going to get 3 or 4 chances a game to catch a ball from Brett Favre. Whether you catch it or not is up to you. Because he threw the ball hard as hell.
It's coming at you 150 miles an hour.
It's going to be throwing hard, so you better catch it. There was one year we played in 2001 up there. He threw it at me, and it went right through my hands and hit me in the chest. Like, I was like, I got this. And I caught it, but it was a body catch because it went through my hands and hit me right in the chest. And I was like, oh, I got it. And I took off. But it's just a matter of whether you're going to catch the ball or not because he's going to give you chances because his arm, that was him. That's what he did.
Did you have interactions with Brett Favre like you had with Aaron Rodgers?
Both of the guys are great. And Brett Favre's probably the most competitive guy I've played against. He hated losing, and he played through everything. He was going to be out there to pulled muscles, broken bones. He was going to be out there. I had so much respect for him, just the way he did it, so crazy. He was out there the whole time. But yeah, I was very fortunate to play against both of those guys. I think I played half against Brett and half against Aaron in my career. Maybe 7 for Brett and 6 for Aaron. So,
what was your reaction to all the heat that Aaron Rodgers was getting this last season then? Because you have such an ultimate respect for the guy, and you have people like, I'm sure you know Hub Arkush.
Hub Arkush? Yeah, he's a Chicago guy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so I don't know how he can still vote for anything after saying that, what he said. Because he has a vote for the MVP, I guess?
Yeah, he has a vote for the MVP and basically was saying that, like, I think Aaron Rodgers is the worst of the worst. He doesn't deserve anything. It was obviously just a leftist
He said he's
narrative.
the biggest jerk in the NFL.
Biggest jerk in the NFL. It's like,
Based on what, Hub? Yeah, I was not very fond of that comment. I just don't see how you can vote for somebody when you have preconceived notions. It's based on what they do on the field. Allegedly, right? Just like the Hall of Fame is based on what you do on the field, supposedly, when you go in. So I just don't understand how he can still have a vote. And just like Aaron said, how can this guy still have a vote after he's already got preconceived notions about me because he doesn't like that I got the shot? Didn't get the shot. So what? It's my decision. If I don't want to get it, I don't have to. Well, you lied to us about not getting it. I said I was immunized. That's what he said, right?
Yeah.
Didn't lie.
I mean, you even have Dr. Fauci. Lord Fauci, saying that like the
so smart,
the best. Oh, he is the smartest of them all.
Amazing.
Man, I'm so glad we go to him for everything. But he was even saying,
just go to the NFL doctors. Why are they using Fauci?
Exactly.
The NFL got rid of COVID. Fauci needs to take some advice from them.
Hey, I completely agree with that.
Right?
That should be the COVID task force. Is the NFL doctors,
the playoff NFL doctors? Whoever ran the playoff testing or situation for the NFL, that's who it needs to be for the and also the NBA had 0 tests after the NFL did that as well. I think there was no more testing.
I mean, even look at what's going on right now in the NBA. I mean, I know you're not watching. Kyrie Irving hasn't been able to play a home game.
I did follow. I like Kyrie. I like Kyrie. Yeah, I follow that guy. I like the way he stood his ground. And look what happened in the end.
And then, like, just talking about Lord Fauci is what he was saying years ago that the best vaccine against a virus is getting the virus itself.
I saw that.
So that's exactly
that got taken down real quick. By the way, everywhere you saw it was gone like that, and it was always tagged. COVID-19 information is disinformation, whatever they put it. The fact checkers. But yeah, I saw that. But that doesn't seem to make sense anymore. That was back then though. That's different now.
Oh, it's way different.
Science has changed with COVID compared to what he was talking about back in the day.
Oh, it's like the wind. It changes whenever.
With the wind. That's exactly right.
But Kyrie Irving, I mean, that's somebody that's what's interesting with conversations like this and conversations I have with like even my parents and other people saying like, I don't follow the NBA, but I like Kyrie. So I'm going to follow, what's happening in his press conferences, what's going on with, is he going to be able to play, all these things. So what initially attracted you to Kyrie? Was there just a news article? Was there something you saw?
No, I knew who he was. Obviously, I know who he is from watching NBA back in the days, and at Duke, I watched him as well. But just he says a lot of good things. He does a lot of good things. And then this past couple of years, obviously, what's been going on in the NBA, and he stood his ground. There's so much backlash against him and everything else. And he was like, the best thing to do is when they played in New York, he couldn't play in the game, but he could go to the game.
Yeah, when he went to go see Duke.
How great was that? He was at the game, his own team's game.
Massless.
Yeah, massless. Courtside, but you can't play in the game. Sorry, bud. How does that make any sense to anybody? It makes zero sense, and I think he kind of exposed him. I'm not sure how soon after that all that stuff changed, but I just
like weeks later.
Yeah, they finally exposed a little bit of it about the nonsense of how dumb it was. But the kid in Orlando, is it Jonah Isaac?
Jonathan Isaac.
Jonathan, I like that guy too.
Amazing
Same
guy.
way. And the thing, I follow him on Instagram as well. The things he says as well are just common sense.
Great Christian dude too.
Yeah, super Christian guy. Most of the stuff they say is kind of common sense if you just kind of think about what they're saying and what they're doing. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's my body. I should know what goes into it. And I've dealt with my body since I was born, so I think I know how I perform and react to certain things in my body.
Yeah, and then,
why risk putting something that you're not sure what you're going to get out of it?
But that's an interesting part of society right now. And talk about like, well, this is what my body feels like. A lot of people are saying like, I feel like a woman.
Oh.
Like like that stuff now. It's like basically people are dumbing things down to a feeling. I know we've covered it extensively on this show. I went out to the Division I swimming championships.
You were there for that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was just a wild.
How does he hide it?
It's there.
How does he hide it?
It's there. I don't want to know.
So
I don't want to know how that's
creep
being
out.
hidden.
But I'm looking at pictures of Leah, and I'm like, where is it? I know it's in there. Right?
I'll be completely honest. I was definitely looking.
Yeah, hell yeah, you were looking. So I'm looking at I'm like, where's this dude put this thing? Is he like, you've seen Silence of the Lambs, right? Is he Buffalo Bill? Is he tucking it like, ooh? You remember that part?
I definitely remember that part.
I'm looking like, dang, how's he swimming with it? Maybe he gets out and does it. I don't know.
But sometimes when you're swimming, it's not as impressive.
That's when you want to hide it because it's cold. Anyway, you were there for that. I bet that was stressful.
Oh my gosh. And it's just like you're dumbing things down to feelings. I was so interested. I'm like, I want to talk to Leah Thomas supporters. And like, just because that's what I feel like we need to do.
There were some there?
Yeah. So they had some on one side closest to the aquatic center.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have heard stories behind this. We had a swim coach from Rice, Seth Houston was on. We've had some pro swimmers talk about this as well. But when I was telling people about what it was like there were Save Women's Sports that were obviously against males competing in women's sports. And then the other side, you had Leah Thomas supporters. And I was like, simple questions. What is a woman? Do you feel like Leah has a biological advantage over these females?
Yep.
And when I asked the simple question of what is a woman, and I know this is something that's
a hard question. You're not a biologist.
Oh, I know.
You got to be tough. That's a tough question.
That's a tough part.
You're not a biologist, so you can't answer that question.
I mean, that's what's a crazy world we live in. You have to be a biologist to know what a woman is.
A woman is.
And
I think I know what a woman is.
I think we know what it is.
I'm pretty sure I know what a woman is.
Yeah, I think there's two genders I heard, and there's XX and XY.
Yes, you can. But the problem, I'm not going to say it's a problem. The thing is, you can identify a certain thing. I'm okay. So the problem I have is if you're fully transitioned and you want to compete against women, I think it's more. It's more okay with me because if you still have men body parts, you should not be competing against the women. I just don't understand how that's okay. You don't see women who are still women transitioning to be a dude competing against dudes. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe I'm missing out.
Because that was the interesting part of this. Because I know asking the supporters, there was like, all right, well, I feel like gender's different for everybody. Being a woman is different for everybody. And then you talk about that specific aspect. It's like, well, why did one of the best women's soccer teams, our U.S. women's national team, get beat by 15U boys out of Dallas?
Yeah, I heard not just beat. Crushed.
Like, in basically, it's just like there is a biological advantage there.
It's just what it is.
When you're talking about somebody that's transitioning, like we live in this world now that I hate to see people mutilating their bodies to be something that they're not. But there was a swimmer, transgender male. So someone broke this down to me, and it was the best way to understand when you hear all these, like there's so many new genders, there's pronouns. And then when you say transgender male, like what does that mean? Just replace transgender with fake. So this is a fake male.
Fake male.
This is a fake male. Isaac Hennig, that swims for Yale, was at the swimming championships.
Okay.
And
transgender, fake male.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So a biological female and had the top surgery and warmed up topless, and you could see the scars here, which like breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But was warming up for the finals on the last day of competing.
Made the finals?
And it's like very good, but that's what's interesting is you have a biological female that transitions to a male but won't go and compete in men's sports. Like,
Isaac was competing against the women?
Exactly.
Oh, so, how's that fair?
Because you're
taking the testosterone and whatever else you have to take to be a male. You should not be allowed to compete against the females. They're giving it both ways. It's just I don't understand that. And there was a track runner in high school, I want to say in South Carolina, who was a let me see how you would say this, a fake woman.
Yeah, so a transgender female is a fake woman.
So he still was transitioning into a female, but he still has male body parts. He set all these state records in South Carolina for the women.
Yeah,
but he was a man.
And I've heard like a track athlete in Connecticut.
Yeah, I'm okay if you want to transition. I have no problem with that, but don't compete against the opposite sex. Usually it's men versus women until you're transitioned. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be able to do that until you're fully transitioned and estrogen, all that stuff or whatever. You shouldn't still have testosterone flowing through you if you're competing against women.
Because that's where I feel like there's an aspect here of like already a male going through puberty is a massive advantage, even if you're going to take estrogen and you're going to take testosterone blockers and stuff like that. Like there's already a physical advantage with like lung capacity. You're talking about bone density. Yeah. You're talking about muscles, everything. That's just like this does not devalue women's sports, saying that a male is going to most likely. That's why it's like the NBA. You're not going to see a woman probably ever make it into the NBA.
No.
You're probably not going to see a woman make it into Major League Baseball. It could, but I just don't.
Tell me you saw what Chappelle said about LeBron going to the WNBA.
Man, he would score like a trillion
840 points. He would average 840 points if he decided to transition and go to the WNBA. There were some other things he said too in that.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
But that's an important conversation.
It's true though, man. That's why there's men in sports and there's women's sports. We're different. That's all there's to it.
And I feel like this comes down to an aspect of like we've just gotten so soft as a society in so many different ways. You're talking about fatherhood's under attack. Women's sports is under attack, mostly because men are taking over.
There's guys competing in women's sports. That's why.
Also, I feel like that's why we need male athletes to speak out against this. It's like, no, this is not being hateful. This is trying to be fair. That it's all about the fairness. That's what we're bringing up. We're not hateful. We're not calling for violence. That's
just be fair. I agree. It's not fair when a man competes in women's sport. That's all there is to it. Now, golf, that's a different story. Women's golf, if a man wants to try and play women's golf, good luck, buddy. Those girls are good. They are good. Man, I really enjoy watching women's golf. I like watching women's volleyball. They're really good too. Some women's sports I really like watching. There are some that I don't really like watching. I love watching women's swimming too. Like when the Olympics roll around,
man,
those girls are badass.
That was an aspect of going to the swim meet. Like people like Reagan Smith, like holy smokes.
She won the gold. She was in the Olympics in 20. They're unbelievable.
Man.
The time they put in. But yeah, there's some really amazing women's sports that are fun to watch for me.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this conversation next week.
I was today years old when I learned that there are people who don't believe Helen Keller was a real person and that the whole story was made up. And now the more I think about it, the more questions I have. I have an update on Hairbrush Gate. For the first time since Netflix pretty much was invented, their subscribers are dropping like flies. They claim it has to do with the war in Ukraine. Yeah, I'm speechless. Well, not really. Not enough to not talk about it. The most shocking moment so far in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, and we'll see what was happening this week in pop culture history with the Pop Culture Rewind. Plus, I'll give you a hint at the end on what the new spillover episode is about. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Poplitics. If you still haven't watched Tuesday's episode of Poplitics, this is one of those times where I'll tell you that you missed some really important stuff that you need to know to be in the loop here on Poplitics. Because, very long story short, I found a hairbrush that wasn't mine in my boyfriend's car. We posted a picture of said brush Tuesday nights. You can see that on the Poplitics Instagram. But, I mean, first of all, I totally believe him, especially because there is no way, if he was actually doing anything shady, that he would be willing to go take a picture of the brush and then comment back to you guys and stuff. I mean, he would freak out and be all defensive or whatever, you know? know if I was talking about it, but he's been such a good sport, and to know him is to know that he probably didn't ever open some of those drawers in his bathroom and never even noticed it before. I mean, he's a man. He owns like 3 items in his bathroom. One of them is the 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner thing. It's not like a girl where you're using every bit of space in there. I mean, you just gotta know Nick, okay?
Are you trying to steal my stuff?
The other thing is, have you met me? I think I've talked about how loyalty is the #1 thing to me like 30 times on this show in the spillover. If I ever felt wronged by someone in the slightest and I truly believed it was an issue, his ass would be to the curb and I would have been flying home ASAP. Also, my best friend Lauren found out about this scenario from the show. I tell her everything, and she was like, Alex, if this was really an issue, you're the most paranoid person on earth. You would have been texting me freaking out, and I didn't. So I will leave you with that.
Why are you the way that you are?
He's also never given me any reason not to trust him, and also we share a location with each other. Trust me, he's not seen anyone else. And he was so worried conservatives were gonna be mad at him by me sharing this story, but you guys were super fair and fun about it.
Aw, that's sweet.
This is crazy. According to Reuters, Netflix lost 200,000 subscribers in its first quarter, falling well short of its forecast of adding 2.5 million subscribers. They suspended their service in Russia after the Ukraine invasion took a toll, resulting in the loss of 700,000 members, and their stocks tumbled Tuesday. Just a thought, maybe your racist, woke virtue signaling of canceling service in Russia for absolutely no reason was a stupid idea?
I'm not going to say this in front of your staff. Go ahead. You're a joke.
Netflix says they're blaming inflation and the war on their mass exodus of subscribers. So, zero responsibility then for your super weird pandering left-wing content.
I'm willing to consider it.
Besides Netflix's own choice of suspending service in Russia for absolutely no reason, I don't think the war has anything to do with it. I do think inflation does partly, yes. A lot of families right now have had to cut down on those luxury things like streaming services just to scrape by because inflation is screwing us so badly.
When Samuel L. Jackson asks what's in my wallet, the answer is ketchup packets.
Netflix seems to still be unwilling to consider the possibility that maybe it's their pandering to the left with their content that people don't like. Netflix, I think you just might be the drama. If any of you have canceled your Netflix subscription in the last year, what was the reason? The Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial is going on this week with the jury and everything. You can watch it on something like Court TV if you've got big boomer energy, or find clips on TikTok like the rest of us. But here are some of the most shocking revelations in the trial so far.
No one, in 5 decades, no one had ever accused Johnny Depp of being abusive of any kind with a woman. For her own personal benefit, Amber Heard forever changed Mr. Depp's life and reputation.
You have a message for your fans right now, Mr. Depp?
I'm scared to death. She knows exactly what she's doing. And I will see you in court.
To set the scene, the whole reason for this defamation trial is because Johnny is suing Amber for $50 million for a Washington Post op-ed that she wrote in 2018. She described herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse, and everyone knew that she was really alleging Johnny as the one who did it, even though the article never mentioned him by name.
Sticks and stones, love.
This week, Johnny testified in court for like 4 hours and detailed just how much violence his childhood had in it at the hands of his mother. Apparently, she was physically, verbally, and psychologically abusive, and all of that gave him a reason to want to be a totally different person from what he knew as a kid. Growing up, his mother ruled everything, and his father apparently never got violent with her or fed into the abuse. Of course, this is all what he's alleging, but it does sound like there are similarities between the mother he knew and the wife Amber became. At one point, he said about Amber, it was sort of a rapid fire, sort of endless parade of insults. He said that he wasn't allowed to use his voice at all, and that, quote, there were times when I would just go and lock myself in the bathroom or anywhere that she couldn't get into.
As your attorney, I advise you to rent a very fast car with no top.
Another detail we learned in this insane trial, Johnny famously had Winona Forever tattooed on him. For those of you that don't know, he had a huge romance with Winona Ryder, the mom in Stranger Things. Anyway, he eventually changed the tattoo to say Wino Forever, and that tattoo is something he claims Amber mocked him for. Amber originally said that Johnny slapped her for the first time over the tattoo, but Johnny insists that assaulting her over making fun of a tattoo legit makes no sense, and to be honest, I agree with him.
Oh, this?
That's my credo. No regrets.
Johnny hasn't been the only person to testify. Amber's assistant testified and basically painted Amber to be the worst star that you could ever work for. Not a good look for Amber. On the assistant's birthday, Amber was texting her things she needed and she said, "Could I please just have my birthday?" And Amber was like, "Well, how was I supposed to know it's your birthday?" And apparently she even spit in her face. Like, that in and of itself is abuse. So to think this woman is squeaky clean and incapable of berating or even assaulting another person is, in my opinion, absurd.
And I specifically remember standing in her office where she leapt up out of her chair, put her face approximately 4 inches from my face as she was spitting in my face and telling me how dare I ask for the salary I was asking for, which was in fact approximately half of my regular annual salary. I was offering her that as a favor, and she felt that gave her the right to spit in my face.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this trial isn't getting nearly as much coverage as it could, especially given Johnny is a huge actor, A-list star. Maybe that's because the whole believe all women mentality that Amber was probably banking on is sort of being challenged. Regardless, this whole thing is straight Hollywood drama with a bunch of juicy details from their marriage, and I think I'm here for it. Actually, I know I am. Like this moment from the trial that went viral.
She told me she didn't like hanging out in his house with his friends because it was boring and they were all old men playing guitars and it wasn't interesting to her.
It's very possible Johnny was a guy who just wanted to chill and enjoy the success of a long, amazing career. And Amber was this entitled B-list actress who thought that she was marrying power, but really just married a chill celebrity dad? Some are saying that he is putting on the act of his life, but I'm not so sure. Conservative court, what do you think? Did Johnny find the abuse of his mother in Amber? Or is this a couple that was never right for each other?
It was a photograph of the bed, our bed, and on my side of the bed was human fecal matter. So I understood why it wasn't a good time to go down there.
What was happening this week in history? I've got the details for you in Pop Culture Rewind. This week in 1993 at Mount Carmel in Waco, Texas, the FBI launched a tear gas assault on the Branch Davidian compound, ending with a fire that killed 81 members, including 22 children. The story is tragic, has so many complexities to it. If you're a fan of this kind of story, I did an entire deep dive evergreen episode, a little pop doc, just YouTube Poplitics Waco.
On April 19th, 1993, tanks rolled in and punched holes in its walls and deposited nearly 400 canisters of tear gas inside the building. Several hours later, a fire broke out.
This far out in the country without fire hydrants, you have to haul all of your water. It's just a very bad scenario here at this point.
Winds fanned the flames and reduced the entire property to ash within an hour.
Then, in 1999 this week, another tragedy struck. At Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, students Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris killed 13 people and wounded 23 more before killing themselves. This was one of the, if not the, first huge story in the news that I remember. I remember being, I don't know, around 6 years old. Let's see, I was born in 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. Yep, I still count on my fingers. I remember being 6 years old and seeing a little bit of this on the news and my mom talking about it. And then I remember us reading this book in church about this, and it was called like She Said Yes. Allegedly some girl, they asked her, "Do you love Jesus?" or something. She said yes, and then they shot her. But then I feel like I'm remembering vaguely hearing that whole story was made up later. I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about? If you grew up like in church in the 90s, then you might know.
She actually wrote, she said, "I'm dying."
Rachel Scott, the first to be gunned down at Columbine. Yet the year before she died, she wrote, "This will be my last year, Lord. Thank you."
We were stunned.
And after her death, that horrible day in 1999, her dad's phone rang.
I got a phone call from a man I'd never met, and he said, "I don't know why I'm having this dream, but I wanted to talk to someone in Rachel's family just to see if maybe it meant something."
On a lighter note, years later on this week in 2008, Danica Patrick became the first woman to win an IndyCar race.
And then it all began. When can you win? When can you win? Well, now, Danica Patrick has won.
Going to make that long plane ride home for over, unless she's got tears coming to her eyes, of 14 hours back to the United States a little easier for Danica Patrick.
Ticket sales at Kansas just went up. Jackaroo, it's all yours.
And that's what happened this week in pop culture history. Do not forget, tonight at midnight Eastern and 9 p.m. Pacific, a new episode of The Spillover will come out. This time, someone you know very well is on the hot seat, being exposed for, well, pretty much everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly of their life. Things they've never shared with the public. Everything from experiencing suicidal thoughts to insecurities to nasty breakups, and even how they are responsible for discovering one of the biggest true crime podcasters in the world, but have never gotten credit. This person is in the conservative movement and under 30. Any guesses? If you live anywhere close to Liberty University, I hope I'll see you at the Culture of Life pro-life fashion show and event Friday. I am so sorry, but because I have to travel today and tomorrow, the next episode of Politics will be next Tuesday. Watch the White Hot Abercrombie documentary I told you about and listen to this new episode of The Spillover because it was very nerve-wracking for this person to share those secrets. Tap the heart or the thumbs up depending on where you're watching. If you've canceled your Netflix subscription in the past year, what was the reason? Woke content, financial, share with the class. Have you been watching the Johnny Depp trial at all? How do you predict it will end? Will he win or lose? And who do you think the guest on The Spillover is this week? DM this episode to your mom. Ask her if Helen Keller was actually a real person and see what she says. And then hit that save button on Instagram. We're back next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics.
Clearly, Politics is best served visually, but you can also listen to Politics if you just want the audio. Subscribe to us anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, and more. Also, make sure that if you are listening to the podcast version, you leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget, subscribe to Politics on YouTube.